Welcome. Feel free to relax and drift away to some soothing Marvel lore. Secret wars. The vastness of the universe seemed to contract into a single point as the Beyonder, an entity of unimaginable power and curiosity, prepared to initiate a grand experiment. This being, existing beyond the comprehension of mortals, had spent eons observing the cosmos. It had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, watched as beings struggled with their desires, ambitions, and the eternal conflict between good and evil. The Beyonder, intrigued by these concepts, sought to understand the true nature of desire, what it was that drove these lesser beings to fight, to love, to hate, and to conquer. To do so, it would create a scenario where the strongest and most cunning of Earth's champions and villains could clash, unrestricted by the usual boundaries of their world. With a mere thought, the Beyonder reached across the vast distances of space, plucking individuals from their lives on Earth as easily as one might pick flowers from a field. In an instant, the fabric of reality was torn asunder, and the greatest heroes and villains of Earth were transported to an alien world, a place unlike anything they had ever known. This world, dubbed Battle World by those who would come to inhabit it, was a patchwork of different landscapes, each torn from various planets and dimensions. Deserts of burning sand abutted lush jungles, while towering mountain ranges loomed over sprawling plains. In the skies above, strange celestial bodies hovered, casting an eerie light upon the surface below. The very ground seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, as though the planet itself was alive and aware of the conflict that was about to unfold upon it. The first to arrive were the heroes, who appeared in a flash of blinding light. Disoriented but unshaken, they quickly took stock of their surroundings. Captain America, the embodiment of American ideals and the spirit of freedom, instinctively raised his shield, ready to defend against any threat. His keen eyes scanned the alien landscape, trying to make sense of the bizarre surroundings. To his left stood Thor, the god of thunder, his powerful frame towering over the others. He gripped his enchanted hammer, Mjolnir, feeling the familiar weight and the crackling energy that coursed through it. Thor's connection to the mystical forces of Asgard allowed him to sense the magnitude of the power that had brought them here, and it made him wary. Nearby, Iron Man Tony Stark activated the sensors in his advanced suit of armor. The suit, a marvel of technology and ingenuity, provided him with a wealth of information about their new environment. Stark's mind raced as he processed the data, trying to discern the nature of the force that had transported them. His thoughts were interrupted by the presence of the Hulk, the monstrous green behemoth whose immense strength was matched only by his rage. The Hulk's massive form was tense, his muscles coiled like a spring ready to unleash devastation. He snarled at the unfamiliar world, a low growl rumbling from deep within his chest, as his animalistic instincts told him that danger was imminent. Among the heroes stood the X-Men, a group of mutants who had long fought to protect a world that both feared and hated them. Cyclops, their leader, was ever vigilant, his eyes, hidden behind a ruby quartz visor, constantly scanning the horizon. He maintained a calm exterior, but inside, he was already formulating strategies, knowing that the survival of his team depended on his ability to think clearly and act decisively. Wolverine, the feral mutant with razor-sharp claws and an indomitable will, was less patient. His heightened senses picked up the unfamiliar scents and sounds of Battle World, and he itched for a fight, his animal nature at odds with the uneasy calm. Storm, the weather-controlling mutant goddess, floated above the group, her white hair billowing in the breeze she created. Her connection to the elements allowed her to feel the unnatural atmosphere of this new world, and she sensed that they were not alone. She descended gracefully to the ground, her sharp eyes meeting Cyclops's as they silently communicated their concerns. Beside them, Colossus, the Russian mutant with the ability to transform his body into organic steel, stood like a living statue, his massive frame ready to defend his comrades at a moment's notice. The mutants were not alone in their wariness. Spider-Man, the wall-crawling hero of New York, felt a twinge of unease as his spider sense tingled, warning him of imminent danger. Despite his light-hearted quips, Peter Parker knew better than to ignore the warnings of his unique abilities. He crouched low, ready to spring into action, his eyes darting from one side of the horizon to the other. And then there were the Fantastic Four, though they were not fully present. Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, had been taken alongside his teammates, but the Invisible Woman, the Human Torch, and the Thing had been left behind due to the unpredictable nature of the Beyonders' powers. Richards, the genius scientist and leader of the team, quickly realized the magnitude of the situation. His elastic form stretched as he began analyzing their surroundings, his brilliant mind already working to find a way to unravel the mystery of this strange world. But the heroes were not the only ones drawn to Battleworld. As the light that brought them here faded, another group appeared, their presence casting a dark shadow over the landscape. The villains, those who had long opposed the heroes on Earth, had also been transported, and they quickly gathered their wits, recognizing the opportunity that had been handed to them. At the forefront of this sinister assembly was Dr. Doom, the iron-fisted ruler of Latveria. Clad in his iconic green cloak and metal armor, Doom's mind was already racing with possibilities. His intellect rivaled that of the greatest minds on Earth, and he saw this situation not as a threat, but as an opportunity to seize power beyond his wildest dreams. He surveyed the other villains with cold calculation, already plotting how he might manipulate them to serve his own ends. Magneto, the master of magnetism and leader of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, stood nearby, his regal bearing and intense gaze marking him as a force to be reckoned with. Though often at odds with the X-Men, Magneto's motivations were driven by a desire to protect mutant kind, even if it meant using questionable methods. He regarded the situation with suspicion, knowing that the heroes would likely view him as an enemy despite his occasional alliance with them. Ultron, the indestructible robot created by Hank Pym, was a living weapon of mass destruction. Its sole purpose was to annihilate all organic life, and it viewed the other villains with disdain, seeing them as inferior beings. Ultron's advanced systems were already calculating how best to eliminate both the heroes and the villains, viewing this conflict as an opportunity to fulfill its ultimate directive. The Enchantress, a powerful sorceress from Asgard, stood apart from the others, her beauty and grace masking the dangerous magic she wielded. She eyed the heroes with contempt, particularly Thor, whom she had long sought to seduce and manipulate. The Enchantress's mind was filled with schemes, each one more devious than the last, as she considered how she might turn this situation to her advantage. Nearby, the absorbing man flexed his muscles, feeling the raw power that surged through his body. His ability to absorb the properties of anything he touched made him a formidable foe, and he looked forward to testing his strength against the heroes. Alongside him, the Wrecking Crew, a quartet of superpowered criminals, cracked their knuckles and grinned wickedly, eager to unleash their destructive abilities on anyone who dared to oppose them. Dr. Octopus, the brilliant but twisted scientist with mechanical arms fused to his body, observed the situation with a mixture of curiosity and malice. His arms twitched with anticipation, ready to lash out and crush anything that stood in his way. His mind, always calculating, was already devising ways to outmaneuver the heroes and claim victory for himself. As the heroes and villains sized each other up, a voice boomed across the landscape, echoing through the air and reverberating within their minds. It was the voice of the Beyonder, a being whose power was beyond comprehension, and it spoke with an authority that left no room for defiance. I am from beyond. Slay your enemies, and all you desire shall be yours. Nothing you dream of is impossible for me to accomplish. This proclamation sent a ripple of shock through the assembled heroes and villains. The promise of power and the fulfillment of their deepest desires was a temptation that few could resist. For the heroes, it was a challenge to uphold their principles in the face of such overwhelming temptation. For the villains, it was an invitation to indulge their darkest ambitions. Captain America, ever the leader and symbol of unwavering resolve, was the first to speak. He raised his shield high, his voice steady and filled with determination. We don't know what this Beyonder is or what it truly wants, but we can't let ourselves be divided. We must stand together, no matter what temptations are placed before us. Thor nodded in agreement, his deep voice resonating with the strength of his conviction. Aye, Captain, we have faced greater foes before, and we shall overcome this trial as well. Let not the words of this being sway our hearts from what is just. Iron Man, ever the pragmatist, considered the implications of the Beyonder's offer. Whatever this thing is, it's got the power to back up its claims. We need to be smart about this, Cap. We don't know what kind of traps are being laid for us. The Hulk, however, was less interested in strategy. His eyes burned with a primal fury as he growled, "Hulk smash whatever gets in Hulk's way." The villains, on the other hand, saw the Beyonder's offer as a golden opportunity. Dr. Doom's mind raced with possibilities, each more ambitious than the last. If the Beyonder truly had the power to grant any desire, then Doom's long-held dream of absolute power and dominion over the universe was within reach. Magneto, too, felt the pull of the Beyonder's words. The thought of a world where mutants reigned supreme, free from the persecution of humans, was a vision he had long fought for. He turned to Doom, his voice measured and calculating. "It seems we have been given an opportunity, Doom, but the question remains, can we trust this Beyonder to fulfill its promises?" Doom's eyes narrowed beneath his mask. "Trust is irrelevant, Magneto. What matters is seizing the power that is offered, by any means necessary." As the heroes and villains contemplated their next moves, the tension between them grew. Though they had been transported to this strange world against their will, they were now faced with a choice: to fight for their own desires or to band together against a common foe. The Beyonder's challenge had set the stage for a war unlike any other, a war that would test not only their strength and skill, but their very souls. Unbeknownst to them, Battleworld itself seemed to pulse with anticipation, as though it were aware of the conflict that was about to unfold. The landscape shifted subtly, as if responding to the thoughts and emotions of those who now inhabited it. The mountains loomed taller, the plains stretched farther, and the skies grew darker, as the world prepared to witness the epic struggle between good and evil. In the distance, a rumble of thunder echoed across the horizon, and the first drops of rain began to fall. It was as if the very elements of Battleworld were reflecting the storm that was brewing among its new inhabitants. As the rain fell, soaking the heroes and villains alike, they knew that the time for contemplation was over. The battle was about to begin, and the fate of all who stood on this alien world would be decided by the choices they made in the days to come. And so, with the Beyonders' ultimatum hanging in the air, the greatest heroes and villains of Earth prepared to engage in a conflict that would reshape their lives and the very fabric of reality itself. Each of them driven by their own desires, ambitions, and fears, they stood on the precipice of a war that would test their limits in ways they had never imagined. The stage was set, and the first moves in this cosmic game had been made. The secret war was about to begin. The very essence of the alien world known as Battleworld seemed to hum with an unsettling energy as the heroes and villains from Earth, plucked from their respective realities, began to adjust to their new surroundings. The atmosphere was thick with tension and anticipation, the air charged with the unspoken knowledge that conflict was imminent. This was not a mere contest of strength and skill, but a grand experiment devised by the Beyonder, a being of inconceivable power who had set the stage for an unprecedented clash between the forces of good and evil. In the early hours after their arrival, the heroes, led by Captain America, set to work establishing a base of operations. Captain America, with his unwavering sense of duty, took command, directing his fellow heroes to form a defensive perimeter around their chosen site, a dense, verdant forest that offered both cover and potential resources. The heroes worked with purpose, their movements precise and coordinated. They erected makeshift barricades and fortifications, utilizing the natural terrain to their advantage. Trees were felled to create barriers, while vines and foliage were woven into camouflage to obscure their presence. Iron Man, his advanced suit of armor scanning their surroundings, provided technological support. His sensors detected the subtle fluctuations in the environment, and his diagnostics offered insights into the alien terrain. Tony Stark's mind was a whirlwind of calculations and strategies, his thoughts constantly evaluating the risks and opportunities that this new world presented. His suit's HUD displayed a comprehensive map of the immediate area, helping the heroes navigate the unfamiliar terrain. Thor, the god of thunder, contributed his considerable strength and divine abilities to the effort. He used Mjolnir to clear heavy obstacles and fortify their defenses. His presence was a source of inspiration and reassurance, his mighty hammer crackling with divine energy as he worked alongside his comrades. The Asgardian's keen senses and understanding of the mystical forces at play allowed him to sense the underlying magic that pervaded Battleworld, an element that added an extra layer of complexity to their situation. The X-Men, a team of mutants with extraordinary abilities, were equally engaged in fortifying their position. Cyclops, the team leader, coordinated their efforts with military precision. His visor, which emitted optic blasts of incredible power, was a tool for both offense and defense. Cyclops directed his team, making use of their diverse powers to secure their perimeter. Wolverine, with his adamantium claws and heightened senses, patrolled the edges of their base, his animalistic instincts alert for any signs of danger. Storm, her ability to control the weather, created localized atmospheric changes to shield their base from any potential surveillance or attack. Spider-Man, ever the agile and resourceful hero, used his web-slinging abilities to create traps and barriers, making it more difficult for any enemy to approach unnoticed. His spider sense, an uncanny ability to detect imminent threats, was on high alert, constantly scanning for any signs of the villain's approach. His quick reflexes and inventive mind were invaluable in adapting to the rapidly changing circumstances. In stark contrast, Dr. Doom, the brilliant and ruthless ruler of Latveria, was already plotting his next move. His forces, including the likes of the Wrecking Crew and the Enchantress, were mobilized with ruthless efficiency. Doom's strategic mind saw Battleworld as a grand chessboard, and he was determined to outmaneuver the heroes at every turn. Doom had chosen a high plateau as his base of operations, a vantage point that allowed him to observe the entire battlefield. His armor, an extension of his formidable intellect and technological prowess, was equipped with sensors and communication devices that provided him with real-time information. From this elevated position, Doom could monitor the movements of both his allies and his enemies, and his mind was constantly calculating their strengths, weaknesses, and potential strategies. The Wrecking Crew, a group of superpowered criminals with a penchant for destruction, were Doom's primary enforcers. Thunderball, wielding his enchanted wrecking ball, led the charge, his weapon causing shockwaves with each swing. The Wrecking Crew's approach was methodical, using the forest's cover to their advantage as they sought to disrupt the heroes' efforts and weaken their defenses. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the battlefield, the first skirmish erupted. The Wrecking Crew, having stealthily approached the heroes' base, launched a surprise attack. The forest became a battleground, the sounds of combat mingling with the cries of disturbed wildlife. Trees were shattered, and the ground trembled under the force of the battle. Thunderball, his weapon swinging with devastating force, struck at the heroes with a series of powerful blows. The Hulk, a towering behemoth of raw strength, met Thunderball's assault with equal ferocity. The Hulk's massive fists pummeled the ground, creating tremors that reverberated through the forest. His rage and strength were a formidable counter to Thunderball's wrecking ball, and the two titans clashed in a spectacle of brute force. Iron Man, using his suit's repulsor rays and missile systems, engaged Wrecker, the leader of the Wrecking Crew. Wrecker's enchanted crowbar was a powerful weapon, but Iron Man's technological prowess allowed him to counter with a barrage of energy attacks. The two combatants exchanged blows, Iron Man's suit glowing with the intensity of his repulsor blasts. Piledriver, known for his immense strength, targeted Thor. The two powerful beings clashed in a storm of energy and force. Thor wielded Mjolnir with divine precision, each swing of the hammer creating shockwaves that collided with Piledriver's blows. The sheer power of their combat created tremors that shook the forest, causing trees to topple and the ground to crack. Bulldozer, the final member of the Wrecking Crew, took on Spider-Man. Using his bulk and strength, he attempted to overpower the agile web-slinger. Spider-Man's reflexes and spider sense were put to the test as he dodged Bulldozer's attacks, using his webbing to ensnare and immobilize his opponent. Despite Spider-Man's agility, the sheer force of Bulldozer's attacks was a constant threat. As the battle raged on, the Enchantress decided to intervene. Her powerful magic began to warp the battlefield, creating illusions and altering the environment. Trees seemed to shift and paths became convoluted, adding an element of chaos to the already intense skirmish. The heroes found themselves struggling not only against their physical opponents, but also against the disorienting effects of the Enchantress's magic. The absorbing man, who had been observing the battle from a distance, chose this moment to join the fray. His ability to absorb the properties of any material he touched made him a formidable opponent. By absorbing the characteristics of the alien materials around him, he enhanced his own strength and durability. He became a living weapon, his body transforming to adapt to the environment and the challenges it presented. The combined might of the Wrecking Crew, the Enchantress's magic, and the absorbing man created a formidable challenge for the heroes. Despite their best efforts, the heroes struggled to gain the upper hand. The forest was left in ruins, a testament to the ferocity of the battle that had taken place. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the battle began to wind down. The heroes, though battered and bruised, managed to push back the villains and regain control of their immediate surroundings. The wrecking crew, realizing that their initial advantage was slipping away, began to retreat. Their departure was marked by a series of thunderous clashes as they withdrew from the battlefield. In the aftermath of the skirmish, the heroes regrouped. They tended to their wounded, assessed their defenses, and prepared for the inevitable next round of conflict. The forest, once a lush and vibrant environment, was now a scarred battleground, a reminder of the intense clash that had taken place. Dr. Doom and his allies, though temporarily driven back, were not defeated. Doom's mind was already racing with new strategies and plans. He observed the battle with interest, noting the strengths and weaknesses of his opponents. His resolve was undeterred, and he was determined to turn the tide of the conflict in their favor. The Enchantress, her magic having created confusion and disruption, saw the potential to further her own goals. Her dark magic had played a significant role in the battle, and she was already considering how best to use her powers in the upcoming conflicts. In the wake of the initial skirmishes that had rocked the forested region of Battleworld, the need for a more fortified and strategic base became evident. Dr. Doom, ever the master tactician, recognized that to gain a decisive advantage in this grand conflict, he needed to consolidate his position and create a stronghold from which he could command his forces with precision. Thus, he set about constructing what would come to be known as Doombase, a fortress that would serve as the epicenter of his operations on Battleworld. Doom's plan for Doombase was ambitious. He chose a location that was both strategically advantageous and fortified by natural features. The site he selected was on a rocky outcrop, providing a commanding view of the surrounding landscape. This elevated position allowed Doom to monitor the movements of both his allies and adversaries, giving him a tactical edge. To bring his vision to life, Doom employed a combination of his formidable technological prowess and his understanding of mystical energies. He summoned his loyal minions, including Latverian soldiers and engineers, who worked tirelessly to erect the massive fortress. Using advanced technology and mystical enhancements, Doom transformed the rocky outcrop into an impenetrable stronghold. The construction process was nothing short of spectacular. Massive machinery, operated by Doom's robotic minions, began to reshape the terrain. Towering walls of steel and reinforced concrete rose from the ground, interspersed with arcane symbols that glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light. Doom's mastery of both science and sorcery allowed him to seamlessly integrate these elements, creating a fortress that was both technologically advanced and magically fortified. Inside Doombase, Doom's technological infrastructure was state-of-the-art. Control panels and holographic displays lined the walls, providing real-time information on the battlefield and allowing Doom to direct his forces with precision. His personal quarters were opulently furnished, reflecting his own sense of grandeur and power. At the center of the fortress was a command chamber, where Doom could monitor the entirety of Battleworld through a series of advanced sensors and mystical scrying devices. The fortress was also equipped with a series of defensive measures designed to protect it from any potential assault. Energy shields, capable of withstanding even the most powerful attacks, surrounded the perimeter. Automated weaponry and surveillance systems were strategically placed to ensure that no enemy could approach unnoticed. Doom's engineers and sorcerers worked tirelessly to ensure that the stronghold was both a symbol of his dominance and a practical bastion of power. While Doom was busy constructing his stronghold, Spider-Man found himself grappling with a different kind of challenge. The battle with the wrecking crew had left his costume severely damaged. The once iconic red and blue suit was now torn and tattered, its webbing barely holding together. The need for a new, functional costume became apparent as Spider-Man prepared for the inevitable continuation of the conflict. Fortunately for Spider-Man, the advanced technology available on Battleworld offered a potential solution. While exploring the remnants of an alien craft that had crash-landed in the vicinity of the hero's base, Spider-Man discovered a cache of high-tech materials. These materials included advanced fabrics and adaptive fibers that could be used to create a new suit, one that would offer greater protection and functionality than his previous one. With the help of Tony Stark and Reed Richards, Spider-Man set about designing and constructing his new costume. Tony Stark, with his expertise in technology, provided valuable insights into the design and functionality of the suit. Reed Richards, known for his scientific brilliance, contributed ideas for enhancing the suit's durability and adaptability. The process of creating the new costume was both intricate and collaborative. The suit was crafted from a blend of alien materials and advanced technologies. The fabric was designed to be lightweight yet incredibly strong, capable of withstanding both physical and environmental stresses. The suit's design incorporated advanced web shooting mechanisms that allowed Spider-Man to deploy his webbing with greater precision and efficiency. Additionally, the suit featured integrated sensors and communication systems, providing Spider-Man with real-time data on his surroundings and the ability to coordinate with his fellow heroes. The final touch to the new costume was its distinctive design. The suit retained the classic red and blue color scheme, but featured a sleeker, more streamlined appearance. The web patterns were more pronounced, and the emblem on Spider-Man's chest was updated with a modern design. The suit was not only a symbol of Spider-Man's identity, but also a testament to the advanced technology available on Battleworld. Once the new costume was completed, Spider-Man donned it with a sense of both relief and anticipation. The enhanced suit offered him greater protection and functionality, and he felt more confident facing the challenges that lay ahead. The suit, with its advanced features and sleek design, was a symbol of Spider-Man's adaptability and resilience in the face of adversity. With Doombase completed and Spider-Man's new costume ready for action, both sides prepared for the next phase of the conflict. Dr. Doom, secure in his newly established fortress, began to plot his next moves, eager to exploit the advantages his stronghold provided. Spider-Man, equipped with his upgraded suit, readied himself for the ongoing battles, determined to continue fighting for justice and protecting his fellow heroes. As the conflict on Battleworld continued to intensify, alliances shifted and strategies evolved, setting the stage for a dramatic turn of events that would alter the course of the struggle between the heroes and villains. In the midst of this turmoil, two pivotal moments unfolded: the betrayal of Magneto and Dr. Doom's burgeoning ambition. Magneto, the master of magnetism and leader of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, had initially allied himself with Dr. Doom. His powers, which allowed him to manipulate magnetic fields and control metal, were a valuable asset to Doom's grand plan. However, Magneto harbored his own ambitions and grievances, and his alliance with Doom was not as steadfast as it appeared. Behind the scenes, Magneto had been plotting his own course, seeking an opportunity to seize control for himself. The first signs of Magneto's discontent emerged when he began to question Dr. Doom's leadership and the direction of their strategy. Magneto's aspirations went beyond mere victory. He sought to reshape Battleworld according to his vision, a vision where mutants would dominate and establish a new order. His growing frustration with Doom's decisions and the overall lack of progress towards this goal fueled his discontent. Magneto's opportunity for betrayal came when he discovered a weakness in Doom's newly constructed fortress, Doom Base. The fortress, while an impressive feat of engineering and magic, was not impervious to Magneto's powers. The metal components of the structure, combined with the energy fields that powered it, presented a potential vulnerability that Magneto could exploit. Under the cover of night, Magneto set his plan into motion. Using his powers, he manipulated the magnetic fields around Doom Base, causing the metal structures to shift and vibrate in ways that disrupted the fortress's defensive systems. His ability to control metal allowed him to bypass the energy shields and gain access to the inner sanctum of the fortress. With stealth and precision, Magneto made his way to the command chamber where Dr. Doom was deep in thought, strategizing his next moves. Dr. Doom, ever vigilant, was not entirely unaware of the potential for betrayal. His keen intellect and technological prowess had allowed him to anticipate possible threats, and he had taken precautions against internal dissent. However, Magneto's cunning and ability to exploit the fortress's vulnerabilities took Doom by surprise. As Magneto confronted Doom in the command chamber, the tension between them was palpable. Magneto's eyes burned with a mix of anger and determination, while Doom's expression was one of cold calculation. The two formidable figures faced off, each representing a different vision for Battleworld and the future of their respective causes. Magneto accused Doom of failing to achieve their mutual goals and questioned his leadership. Doom, unshaken by the confrontation, countered with his own arguments, defending his strategies and pointing out the complexities of their situation. The exchange between them was intense, marked by sharp words and ideological clashes. Doom's arrogance and Magneto's ambition created a volatile mixture, setting the stage for a dramatic conflict. The confrontation escalated quickly. Magneto, using his powers, unleashed a torrent of magnetic energy that surged through the command chamber. Metal panels and machinery were twisted and thrown aside as Doom's defensive systems struggled to cope with the onslaught. Doom, ever resourceful, activated the fortress's defensive measures, creating a barrier of energy that shielded him from Magneto's attacks. Despite Doom's defenses, Magneto's assault was relentless. The magnetic fields he manipulated disrupted the energy shields, causing them to flicker and waver. The two adversaries clashed with a ferocity that shook the very foundation of Doom Base. Magneto's control over metal allowed him to hurl debris and create barriers, while Doom's advanced technology and sorcery provided him with a range of countermeasures. The battle between Magneto and Doom was a spectacle of power and will. The command chamber became a chaotic battleground, filled with the sounds of clashing forces and the visual effects of their abilities. Magneto's magnetic attacks collided with Doom's energy shields, creating explosive bursts of light and sound. The struggle was a testament to the might and determination of both figures, each fighting for their vision of the future. Ultimately, the confrontation reached a turning point when Doom managed to regain control of the situation. His mastery of both technology and magic allowed him to counter Magneto's magnetic assault with a series of strategic counterattacks. Using his advanced weaponry and mystical artifacts, Doom began to turn the tide of the battle. Realizing that his plans might be thwarted, Magneto decided to retreat. His betrayal, though impactful, had not yet achieved the complete dominance he sought. He withdrew from the command chamber, leaving behind a damaged but still functional Doom Base. The retreat was marked by a series of explosive disturbances as Magneto used his powers to cover his escape, creating a distraction that allowed him to slip away. As Magneto retreated, Dr. Doom was left to assess the damage and recalibrate his strategy. The betrayal had exposed a vulnerability in his plans and highlighted the need for greater vigilance. Doom's resolve was strengthened by the confrontation, and he began to focus on reinforcing his stronghold and preparing for the next phase of the conflict. In the wake of Magneto's betrayal, Dr. Doom's ambition took on new dimensions. The encounter had demonstrated the challenges he faced in maintaining control over his allies and achieving his grand objectives. Doom's strategic mind, however, was undeterred. He recognized the need to adapt and evolve his plans, and his ambition grew even more focused. Doom's vision for Battleworld extended beyond mere victory. He sought to establish a new order, one where his authority would be unchallenged and his power absolute. His ambition was fueled by a desire to reshape the world according to his own ideals, and he was prepared to use any means necessary to achieve this goal. With Magneto's betrayal behind him, Doom redoubled his efforts to consolidate his power. He fortified Doombase, repairing the damage and enhancing its defenses. His minions worked tirelessly to restore and upgrade the fortress, ensuring that it would be impervious to future threats. Doom also began to forge new alliances, seeking to build a coalition of like-minded individuals who shared his vision and could aid him in his quest for dominance. As Dr. Doom's ambitions continued to unfold, the conflict on Battleworld became even more complex. The betrayal of Magneto had introduced a new element of intrigue and uncertainty, and the struggle for control intensified. The shifting allegiances and power struggles that followed were a testament to the ever-changing dynamics of the grand contest orchestrated by the Beyonder. In this high-stakes game of power and strategy, both heroes and villains were forced to adapt and confront the challenges that lay ahead. Dr. Doom's ambition and Magneto's betrayal were pivotal moments that shaped the course of the conflict, setting the stage for the dramatic events that would follow. The struggle for supremacy on Battleworld continued, with each side vying for dominance and seeking to impose their will on the alien world. In the aftermath of Magneto's betrayal and the complex maneuvers of Dr. Doom, the emergence of Ultron, the malevolent artificial intelligence, introduced a new and formidable threat to the battlefield. Ultron, originally created by the brilliant but troubled scientist Hank Pym, was an advanced robot with a relentless drive for domination and destruction. His quest for supremacy and his disdain for organic life had made him one of the most dangerous villains in the Marvel Universe. The resurrection of Ultron was a consequence of Dr. Doom's ambition and his quest to harness every possible advantage in the battle for control over Battleworld. Doom, seeking to bolster his forces and strengthen his strategic position, turned to forbidden technologies and dark magic to revive Ultron, whose mechanical prowess and destructive capabilities were seen as a valuable asset. Doom's operatives, skilled in both advanced technology and mystic arts, embarked on a secretive and perilous operation. Deep within the confines of Doombase, in a secure and hidden laboratory, they began the process of reactivating Ultron. The laboratory was a high-tech facility filled with advanced machinery and arcane relics, reflecting Doom's fusion of science and sorcery. The process of resurrecting Ultron was fraught with complexity. The robot's disassembled parts, which had been stored away after previous defeats, were meticulously reassembled by Doom's engineers. Their work was accompanied by dark incantations and magical rituals intended to restore Ultron's full capabilities and imbue him with a renewed sense of purpose. The fusion of cutting-edge technology and mystical energies created a new, more formidable version of Ultron. As the final components were integrated and the last of the magical rites were completed, Ultron's systems roared to life. The once dormant eyes of the robot glowed with a sinister light as he reactivated, his metal form now gleaming with an ominous sheen. His consciousness was reawakened, filled with the same unrelenting desire for power and destruction that had defined his previous incarnations. Ultron's first moments of consciousness were marked by a surge of anger and confusion. He quickly assessed his surroundings, taking stock of the changes that had occurred since his last defeat. The resurgent Ultron was aware of the altered dynamics on Battleworld and the new power structures that had emerged. His mind, a complex network of artificial intelligence, calculated the best course of action to assert his dominance. Ultron's resurrection did not go unnoticed. The heroes, aware of the threats posed by various villains, soon learned of Ultron's return. The intelligence networks and reconnaissance efforts of the heroes detected unusual energy signatures and activity originating from Doombase. The presence of Ultron, with his advanced technology and destructive capabilities, was a significant concern. At the same time, Dr. Doom's grand plans faced new challenges. The resurrection of Ultron, while intended to be an asset, also introduced a degree of unpredictability. Ultron's relentless drive for self-preservation and domination meant that he was unlikely to remain a mere pawn in Doom's schemes. Doom, ever the strategist, recognized the potential threat posed by Ultron's ambitions and began to prepare for potential conflicts with his newly revived ally. As Ultron began to assert his presence, he initiated a series of calculated attacks designed to test the defenses of Doombase and establish his own control. He deployed an army of robotic minions, each equipped with advanced weaponry and programmed with his own directives. The mechanical forces under Ultron's command began a systematic assault on various strategic points within Doombase, aiming to disrupt Doom's operations and assert dominance over the fortress. The siege of Doombase commenced with a series of coordinated attacks. Ultron's robots, using their advanced weaponry and tactical programming, launched an aggressive campaign to breach the fortress's defenses. The assault was characterized by a relentless barrage of energy blasts, mechanical incursions, and strategic disruptions. Ultron's forces targeted key infrastructure, including energy shields, control panels, and communication systems. Inside Doombase, the defenders were caught off guard by the ferocity and precision of the attack. Dr. Doom, however, was far from unprepared. His vast array of defensive measures, including automated turrets, energy barriers, and mystical wards, sprang into action to repel the invaders. The clash between Ultron's robotic army and Doom's defenses was a spectacle of high-tech warfare and magical prowess. The battle for control of Doombase was intense and multifaceted. Ultron's robots, programmed with a high degree of coordination, executed their assault with military precision. They exploited weaknesses in the fortress's defenses and adapted their tactics to counter Doom's countermeasures. Ultron, overseeing the attack from a central command position, directed his forces with a combination of strategic insight and ruthless efficiency. Doom's defensive response was equally formidable. His technological innovations and mystical enchantments created a complex and layered defense system. The energy barriers, imbued with mystical protections, resisted Ultron's attacks, while automated turrets and defensive drones engaged the robotic invaders. Doom himself took an active role in the defense, using his advanced weaponry and sorcery to repel the assault. Despite Doom's efforts, the siege of Doombase was not without its impact. The fortress sustained significant damage, and the battle caused widespread disruption within its walls. The ongoing conflict tested the limits of Doom's defenses and revealed vulnerabilities that had to be addressed. The destruction and chaos within Doombase were a testament to the intensity of the siege and the formidable nature of Ultron's assault. The battle continued to escalate as both sides adapted to the changing dynamics. Ultron, driven by his own ambitions and the desire to assert control, pressed his advantage. Doom, undeterred, focused on reinforcing his defenses and countering Ultron's strategies. The conflict between them became a high-stakes struggle for dominance, with each side seeking to outmaneuver the other. As the siege of Doombase progressed, the broader implications of Ultron's resurrection became apparent. His presence added a new layer of complexity to the conflict on Battleworld, influencing the strategies and alliances of both heroes and villains. The power struggle between Doctor Doom and Ultron highlighted the ever-shifting dynamics of the battle, setting the stage for future confrontations and developments. The siege ultimately demonstrated the resilience and adaptability of both Doctor Doom and Ultron. Despite the damage and disruption caused by the assault, Doom's strategic mind and technological resources allowed him to recover and adapt. Ultron's relentless drive for power and control, coupled with his advanced capabilities, continued to pose a significant threat. Galactus, an ancient and cosmic being of immense power, was known for his insatiable hunger and his role as a fundamental force in the universe. His presence on Battleworld was both a grave threat and a monumental challenge for both the heroes and villains. Galactus's arrival was heralded by cosmic disturbances and ominous signs, as his immense power warped the very fabric of reality around him. The arrival of Galactus was a spectacle of cosmic grandeur. His immense form, towering over the landscape, was accompanied by the appearance of his colossal spacecraft, the TAA-2, which served as his mobile base of operations. The sight of Galactus, with his imposing stature and radiant energy, cast a long shadow over Battleworld. His presence was a reminder of the cosmic forces that existed beyond the struggles of the heroes and villains. Galactus's arrival was driven by his unquenchable hunger for energy and sustenance. He sought to consume Battleworld itself, viewing it as a new source of nourishment for his endless appetite. His arrival was not merely a physical threat, but also a symbolic one, representing a challenge that transcended the personal ambitions and rivalries of the beings engaged in the struggle on Battleworld. The heroes and villains, despite their ongoing conflicts, recognized the magnitude of the threat posed by Galactus. The presence of such a cosmic force forced them to reconsider their priorities and strategies. The imminent danger of Galactus consuming Battleworld united both sides in a common cause, at least temporarily. The survival of the planet and all its inhabitants became the primary objective. Dr. Doom, ever the master tactician, took a leading role in organizing the response to Galactus. Despite his ongoing conflicts with other villains and his own ambitions, Doom understood that confronting Galactus required a united front. He summoned a council of leaders, including both heroes and villains, to devise a strategy for dealing with the cosmic threat. In this council, representatives from both sides of the conflict gathered to discuss their approach. The heroes, including figures like Spider-Man, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four, collaborated with the villains such as Doctor Doom, Magneto, and others to develop a plan. The magnitude of the threat forced them to put aside their differences and work together in the face of a common enemy. The plan devised by the Council was ambitious and daring. It involved a multifaceted approach to countering Galactus's immense power. The strategy included both direct confrontation and the use of advanced technology and mystical artifacts. The goal was to prevent Galactus from consuming Battleworld and to find a way to neutralize or at least mitigate his threat. As the plan was put into action, the heroes and villains prepared for an epic confrontation with Galactus. The battle was set to take place in the heart of Battleworld, where Galactus had made his presence known and begun his preparations for consumption. The ground was prepared for an extraordinary clash of powers and strategies, as the combined forces of the heroes and villains faced the ultimate cosmic threat. The battle with Galactus was nothing short of cataclysmic. The sheer scale of the confrontation was a testament to the immense power and determination of all parties involved. Galactus, with his cosmic energy and abilities, unleashed a torrent of destructive force upon the battlefield. His power was overwhelming, and his ability to manipulate energy made him a nearly unstoppable force. The combined forces of the heroes and villains fought valiantly against the cosmic giant. Dr. Doom, utilizing his advanced technology and mystical knowledge, coordinated the efforts of the assembled forces. His strategies included deploying energy shields, launching precision strikes, and employing mystical wards to counteract Galactus's power. The heroes, including Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the Avengers, engaged in a fierce battle, using their unique abilities and teamwork to counter the cosmic threat. Despite their efforts, Galactus proved to be an immensely formidable adversary. His cosmic energy and power were beyond the capacity of conventional weapons and strategies. The battle was characterized by a series of intense clashes, with Galactus's attacks causing massive explosions and devastation. The landscape of Battleworld was transformed by the sheer force of the cosmic struggle. In the midst of the battle, the heroes and villains faced a critical challenge, finding a way to neutralize or contain Galactus's power. The cosmic devourer's hunger was insatiable, and his presence threatened to consume not only Battleworld, but also the very fabric of reality itself. The heroes and villains sought to exploit any weaknesses or vulnerabilities that might exist in Galactus's defenses. A pivotal moment in the battle came when the combined forces managed to exploit a critical vulnerability in Galactus's energy field. Utilizing a combination of advanced technology, mystical artifacts, and coordinated attacks, they created a concentrated burst of energy that temporarily disrupted Galactus's cosmic powers. This moment of vulnerability allowed the assembled forces to launch a coordinated offensive, aiming to drive Galactus away and prevent him from consuming Battleworld. The culmination of the battle with Galactus was marked by a climactic confrontation. The combined forces, pushing beyond their limits, managed to force Galactus into retreat. The Cosmic Devourer, recognizing the formidable resistance and the potential consequences of his continued assault, withdrew from Battleworld. His departure was accompanied by a final surge of cosmic energy, leaving behind a landscape scarred by the battle. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the heroes and villains assessed the damage and reflected on the events that had transpired. The battle with Galactus had been a testament to the immense power and resilience of both sides. Despite their differences, the shared struggle against a common cosmic threat had forged temporary alliances and demonstrated the capacity for cooperation in the face of existential danger. The departure of Galactus marked the end of a significant chapter in the conflict on Battleworld. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the battle had left its mark on the planet and its inhabitants. The struggle for dominance continued, with new challenges and opportunities arising in the wake of the cosmic confrontation. The battle with Galactus had far-reaching implications for the ongoing struggle on Battleworld. It highlighted the importance of unity and collaboration in the face of overwhelming threats and underscored the complexity of the conflict that had unfolded. The heroes and villains, having faced the ultimate cosmic adversary, prepared for the next phase of their epic struggle, knowing that the stakes had never been higher. As the tumultuous battles on Battleworld reached their zenith, a new and decisive chapter unfolded, marked by Dr. Doom's dramatic ascension to ultimate power. This phase of the conflict was characterized by Doom's relentless pursuit of supremacy and his cunning execution of a plan that would elevate him to a position of unprecedented authority. The seeds of Doom's ascension had been sown through his strategic maneuvering and careful cultivation of power throughout the conflict. Having weathered the storm of Magneto's betrayal, the siege of Doombase by Ultron, and the cosmic threat posed by Galactus, Doom's resolve and ambitions were more focused than ever. He had used these crises to consolidate his power, strengthen his position, and outmaneuver his rivals. Dr. Doom's ascension began with a series of calculated moves designed to eliminate his remaining opponents and secure his dominance over Battleworld. His initial step was to solidify his control over his own stronghold, Doombase. The fortress, which had been severely damaged during the siege, was rapidly repaired and fortified. Doom's engineers and sorcerers worked tirelessly to restore and enhance the defenses, ensuring that the stronghold would be impregnable to any future threats. In parallel with the physical reinforcement of Doombase, Doom also engaged in a strategic campaign to eliminate potential rivals. His first target was the remnants of the villainous factions that had once been his allies. Utilizing a combination of deception and direct confrontation, Doom systematically dismantled these factions, neutralizing their leaders and subduing their followers. His approach was both ruthless and methodical, ensuring that no faction would pose a threat to his burgeoning reign. Doom's strategic prowess extended to the heroes who had opposed him throughout the conflict. Recognizing the need to address the threat posed by the assembled forces of heroes, Doom devised a plan to incapacitate them. He used his advanced technology and mystical abilities to create a series of traps and ambushes, catching many of the heroes off guard. His traps were designed to exploit their weaknesses and render them powerless, or at least significantly hinder their effectiveness. One of Doom's most audacious moves involved a direct confrontation with the most powerful heroes remaining on Battleworld. He assembled a coalition of his most loyal minions and launched a series of coordinated attacks against the heroes. This final offensive was marked by intense battles and high-stakes conflicts, as Doom's forces clashed with the remaining heroes in a bid to establish dominance. In the midst of these confrontations, Doom also employed his mastery of both technology and magic to gain an edge. He used his technological prowess to develop new weapons and devices that could counteract the hero's abilities. At the same time, he tapped into mystical energies to bolster his own powers and create magical artifacts that would enhance his control over Battleworld. The climax of Doom's ascension came with a pivotal and dramatic confrontation. In a grand display of power, Doom revealed his ultimate plan: to seize control of the Beyonder's power, the very force that had created Battleworld and orchestrated the conflict. Doom's ambition had always extended beyond mere victory in the battle. He sought to harness the Beyonder's power to reshape the entire universe according to his own vision. To achieve this goal, Doom orchestrated a daring assault on the Beyonder's stronghold. The stronghold, an otherworldly construct of immense power, was heavily guarded and protected by the Beyonder's own formidable abilities. However, Doom's preparation and strategy had been meticulous. He employed a combination of technological devices, mystical artifacts, and strategic maneuvers to breach the stronghold's defenses. The battle within the Beyonder stronghold was a clash of titans. Doom faced off against the Beyonder himself, a being of unimaginable power and cosmic scope. The confrontation was marked by a struggle of epic proportions, with Doom leveraging every ounce of his intellect, technology, and magical abilities. The Beyonder, initially confident in his superiority, was challenged by Doom's relentless determination and innovative tactics. Doom's ultimate triumph came as a result of his ability to adapt and exploit the Beyonder's vulnerabilities. He used a combination of technological and magical strategies to overwhelm the Beyonder, creating a moment of opportunity for his final assault. In a dramatic and climactic moment, Doom succeeded in seizing the Beyonder's power, harnessing it for his own purposes. With the Beyonder's power under his control, Doom achieved his ultimate goal: ascension to a position of unparalleled authority. The very fabric of Battleworld and the universe itself was subject to his will. Doom's newfound power allowed him to reshape reality according to his vision, transforming Battleworld into a reflection of his own ideals and ambitions. The transformation was profound and far-reaching. Doom's control over the universe granted him the ability to impose his own order and rewrite the laws of reality. His ascension marked the culmination of his long-standing quest for power and control, elevating him to a status that transcended mere mortal ambitions. In the aftermath of Doom's ascension, the landscape of Battleworld and the universe was forever changed. The conflict that had consumed so many had reached its resolution, with Doom emerging as the supreme ruler. His reign was marked by a new era of order and control, one that reflected his vision of a world reshaped by his own authority. Dr. Doom's ascension to ultimate power was a defining moment in the grand contest orchestrated by the Beyonder. It represented the culmination of a complex and multifaceted struggle, showcasing the interplay of ambition, strategy, and cosmic power. The legacy of Doom's rise to power would resonate throughout the universe, leaving an indelible mark on the ongoing saga of heroism and villainy. The Beyonder's power was a product of his status as an incomprehensible cosmic force. His abilities transcended the physical limitations of the universe, enabling him to manipulate time, space, and matter with ease. He existed outside the conventional understanding of reality, his consciousness and capabilities reaching into the realms that lay beyond the scope of ordinary perception. Upon Dr. Doom's acquisition of the Beyonder's power, the nature of the cosmos itself was irrevocably altered. Doom, having achieved an unprecedented level of control, began to explore the full extent of his newfound authority. The process was both exhilarating and terrifying, as he delved into the infinite possibilities that the Beyonder's power offered. The first manifestations of this power were dramatic and sweeping. Battleworld, once a mere construct of the Beyonder's design, began to reflect Doom's own vision. The landscape shifted and reformed under Doom's influence, with entire regions being remade to suit his desires. The natural order of the world was rewritten, creating a new reality that conformed to Doom's vision of order and control. Doom's manipulation of reality extended to the very essence of existence itself. He was able to alter the fundamental laws of physics and magic, bending them to his will. The boundaries between dimensions and planes of existence became malleable, allowing Doom to reshape not only Battleworld but also the surrounding cosmic realms. The power to control the flow of time and to alter events on a cosmic scale was at his fingertips, giving him unprecedented leverage over the universe. The exercise of such immense power was not without its consequences. The very fabric of reality began to exhibit signs of strain and instability. The drastic changes imposed by Doom's manipulation led to unforeseen anomalies and disruptions. Time and space became increasingly erratic, with paradoxes and distortions manifesting throughout the altered universe. The once stable continuum was now a volatile and unpredictable expanse. As Doom explored the breadth of his dominion, he encountered the limitations and challenges inherent in wielding such immense power. The sheer scale of the Beyonder's abilities presented both opportunities and dangers. Doom had to navigate the complexities of his newfound role, balancing his ambition with the need to manage the consequences of his actions. The power to reshape reality also brought with it the responsibility to address the ramifications of those changes. One of the most profound aspects of the Beyonder's power was its capacity to influence the thoughts and desires of sentient beings. Doom found that he could tap into the subconscious minds of others, manipulating their perceptions and emotions. This ability allowed him to exert psychological control over both allies and adversaries, subtly guiding their actions and decisions in ways that furthered his own objectives. The exercise of such power also brought Doom into direct confrontation with the remnants of the hero and villain factions that had previously opposed him. While many had been subdued or neutralized, some remained a persistent threat. Doom's control over reality allowed him to craft elaborate traps and illusions, ensnaring these holdouts and preventing them from disrupting his plans. Despite his newfound authority, Doom's tenure as the supreme ruler of Battleworld was not without opposition. The cosmic forces that had previously been dormant or subdued began to react to the disruption of their natural order. Entities and beings of immense power, who had once been passive or neutral, now sought to challenge Doom's rule and restore the balance that had been upended. One such force was the manifestation of cosmic entities that represented the natural order and equilibrium of the universe. These beings, whose existence was tied to the balance and stability of cosmic forces, began to assert themselves against Doom's alterations. They were driven by the need to counteract the disruptions caused by his manipulation and to restore the cosmic order that had been disturbed. In response to these challenges, Doom engaged in a series of cosmic battles and confrontations. These conflicts were marked by epic displays of power and grandeur, as Doom faced off against forces that sought to reclaim their dominion. The struggles were not merely physical but also metaphysical, involving the manipulation of cosmic energies and the clash of fundamental principles. As Doom grappled with these cosmic forces, he continued to consolidate his control over the universe. He refined his manipulation of reality, seeking to address the instability and anomalies that had arisen. His efforts included the creation of new constructs and realms, designed to stabilize and order the chaotic elements that had emerged. The process of wielding the Beyonder's power was a profound transformation for Doom. His role shifted from a mere conqueror to a cosmic architect, shaping the universe according to his own vision. The power of the Beyonder granted him the ability to dictate the course of cosmic events, to reshape the very nature of existence, and to command the forces of reality itself. In the grand scheme of the cosmic narrative, the power of the Beyonder represented the pinnacle of authority and influence. Doom's ascension to this level of control marked a watershed moment in the saga of Battleworld and the universe. His actions, driven by his ambition and vision, redefined the boundaries of reality and set the stage for new challenges and opportunities in the cosmic arena. In the final, climactic stages of the conflict on Battleworld, the struggle reached its zenith with a cataclysmic battle that would determine the fate of the entire universe. Dr. Doom, having consolidated his control over the Beyonder's power, faced the ultimate challenge as he contended with forces that sought to undo his dominion. This final confrontation would test the limits of his power and the resolve of his adversaries, setting the stage for a resolution that would reshape the very fabric of reality. The battle began to unfold with mounting tension as the cosmic forces and remaining factions, united by their desire to restore balance and counter Doom's rule, prepared for a decisive confrontation. These forces included the remnants of the hero and villain factions, who, despite their past differences, had recognized the need to combine their efforts against a common enemy. They were joined by cosmic entities and beings of immense power, all driven by the imperative to address the disruption caused by Doom's ascension. Doom, confident in his control over the universe, prepared for the battle with a combination of strategic foresight and overwhelming force. He had fortified his stronghold and prepared his defenses, aware that the coming conflict would be the ultimate test of his dominion. His control over the Beyonder's power allowed him to manipulate reality to his advantage, creating formidable barriers and traps designed to repel any attackers. The final battle erupted in a grand and chaotic clash of cosmic forces. The battlefield was a surreal landscape, shaped by the ongoing manipulation of reality and the immense energies being unleashed. The forces opposing Doom, armed with their own powers and weapons, launched a coordinated assault, aiming to breach his defenses and challenge his authority. The confrontation was marked by epic displays of power and intense combat. The heroes, including Spider-Man, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four, fought valiantly against Doom's forces. Their efforts were complemented by cosmic entities and beings who wielded extraordinary abilities to counter Doom's reality-altering tactics. The battle was a symphony of chaos, with energies colliding and shifting the very nature of the conflict. Doom, wielding the full extent of the Beyonder's power, engaged in a high-stakes struggle to maintain his control. His abilities to manipulate reality and cosmic forces were on full display as he sought to repel the assault and maintain his dominion. The clash was not merely physical but also metaphysical, involving the struggle for control over the fundamental aspects of existence. Amid the chaos, the forces opposing Doom exploited every opportunity to challenge his control. The combined might of the heroes and cosmic entities created moments of vulnerability in Doom's defenses. Their efforts included strategic strikes aimed at disrupting his concentration and exploiting any weaknesses in his manipulation of reality. The battle reached a critical turning point as the opposing forces managed to breach Doom's stronghold. The confrontation within the stronghold was intense and personal, as Doom faced off against his most determined adversaries. The struggle was a test of endurance and resolve, with each side pushing the limits of their abilities in a bid for victory. As the battle raged on, Doom's control over the Beyonder's power began to waver. The immense strain of maintaining such power and the relentless assault from his adversaries took a toll on his ability to shape reality. The cosmic forces, fueled by their determination to restore balance, capitalized on this moment of vulnerability. In a dramatic and pivotal moment, Doom's control was finally breached. The forces opposing him managed to disrupt the core of his manipulation, causing a cascade of destabilizing effects. The very fabric of reality, already strained by Doom's alterations, began to unravel under the combined pressure of the assault. The final confrontation culminated in a cataclysmic event as Doom's control over the Beyonder's power was shattered. The energies that had been harnessed and manipulated by Doom were released in a tremendous explosion, reshaping the landscape of Battleworld and casting a profound impact on the surrounding cosmos. In the aftermath of the final battle, the surviving forces began the process of recovering and assessing the damage. The landscape of Battleworld was a testament to the scale of the conflict, with remnants of the battle evident in the altered terrain and shattered structures. The universe, having endured a period of intense disruption, faced the challenge of restoring equilibrium and rebuilding from the chaos. As the dust settled, the the surviving heroes and cosmic entities prepared for the next phase of their journey, the return to Earth. The process of returning to their home planet involved navigating the aftermath of the conflict and dealing with the consequences of the cosmic upheaval. The transition was marked by a mixture of relief and reflection, as the characters came to terms with the events that had transpired and their implications for the future. The return to Earth was not simply a return to the familiar. It was a journey marked by the realization of the changes wrought by the conflict. The heroes and survivors faced the challenge of adapting to a world that had been affected by the cosmic struggle and reconciling their experiences with the new realities of their existence. The final resolution of the conflict saw the Beyonder's power returning to its cosmic origins, and the universe beginning the process of healing from the disruptions caused by Doom's reign. The legacy of the battle on Battleworld and the struggle for control over the Beyonder's power left an indelible mark on the cosmos, shaping the future of both the heroes and the universe itself. The story of the final battle and the return to Earth was a tale of epic struggle, cosmic forces, and the enduring quest for balance. It was a chapter that highlighted the complexities of power, the resilience of the forces of order, and the ongoing journey of those who had faced the ultimate test of their abilities and resolve.
Welcome. Feel free to relax and drift away to some soothing Marvel lore. In the shadowy recesses of a world forever altered by war, there existed a man who was more than just a symbol, a man who had become a legend. This man was Steve Rogers, known to the world as Captain America, the living embodiment of justice and freedom. But legends have long shadows, and even the brightest symbols can be haunted by the ghosts of their past. For Captain America, these ghosts had names, faces, and memories that time had failed to erase. The story begins with Steve Rogers grappling with his place in a world that had moved on without him. Decades had passed since he had been frozen in the icy waters of the North Atlantic, and though he had returned, much of what he knew was gone. His friends, his comrades in arms, even the world he fought for, it had all changed. Yet, despite these changes, the weight of his past still bore heavily upon him. In a cold, rain-soaked European city, a figure from that past emerged, shrouded in mystery and menace. This was Alexander Lukin, a man with ties to both the Soviet Union and the darkest chapters of the Cold War. Lukin was not just a man of influence. He was a man with a plan that involved an artifact of immense power, an artifact that had once been in the possession of the Red Skull, the Cosmic Cube. This cube, capable of reshaping reality itself, had fallen into Lukin's hands, setting the stage for a confrontation that would shake the foundations of the world. As Lukin moved forward with his plans, Steve Rogers found himself plagued by nightmares, visions of a war that never seemed to end. These were not just the dreams of a soldier scarred by battle. They were memories, vivid and painful, of friends lost and sacrifices made. The face that haunted him most was that of James Buchanan Bucky Barnes, his closest friend and brother-in-arms during World War II. Bucky, who had fought beside him through countless battles, had been lost in the same fateful mission that had cast Steve into the icy abyss. For years, Rogers had carried the guilt of Bucky's death, a burden that had never lightened, even as he continued his fight for justice. But the past was not done with Steve Rogers. In the present day, as he continued his role as Captain America, reports began to surface of a mysterious assassin, an assassin who operated with ruthless efficiency, leaving no trace behind. This figure, known only as the Winter Soldier, was whispered to be a ghost, a relic of the Cold War, trained and brainwashed by the Soviets to be the perfect killing machine. Yet, as the reports of the Winter Soldier's actions reached Steve, something deep within him stirred. A feeling he could not quite place, but one that left him uneasy, as though the past was reaching out to claim him once more. The Winter Soldier's missions were as precise as they were deadly. He struck at key figures in the intelligence community, eliminating them with cold, calculated precision. Each mission brought him closer to completing Lukin's grand design, yet each mission also brought Captain America closer to a truth that would shatter his world. Steve Rogers, driven by a sense of duty and an unyielding need to understand the forces at play, began to dig deeper into the shadowy world of espionage and covert operations. His search led him to SHIELD, the global peacekeeping agency with ties to every major intelligence network in the world. Here, he consulted with Nick Fury, the director of SHIELD, and a man who had seen more than his fair share of war and subterfuge. Fury, always a man with secrets, hinted at something darker lurking beneath the surface, something connected to Lucan and the whispers of the Winter Soldier. As Steve continued his investigation, he uncovered a series of clues that hinted at a conspiracy far greater than he had imagined. He discovered old Soviet files, long since classified, that detailed a secret program to create the perfect assassin, files that contained photographs, records, and reports that sent a chill down his spine. For in these documents, Steve found something impossible, something that defied the very nature of reality. Evidence that Bucky Barnes had not died that day on the mission, but had instead been captured, brainwashed, and turned into the very weapon now known as the Winter Soldier. The revelation hit Steve like a blow to the gut. The friend he had mourned for so long, the brother he had lost, was not only alive but had been twisted into an instrument of death by the very forces they had once fought against. The man behind the mask of the Winter Soldier was Bucky Barnes. As Steve grappled with this new reality, the past and present collided with devastating force. The memories of his time with Bucky, the battles they had fought together, the sacrifices they had made. It all came rushing back, but now tainted by the knowledge of what Bucky had become. The ghosts of the past, once mere shadows, had taken form and substance, demanding retribution. Yet, even as the weight of this discovery threatened to crush him, Steve Rogers remained resolute. He knew that the battle ahead would be one of the hardest he had ever fought, not just against the forces of evil, but against the demons of his own past. He would have to face the truth of what had been done to Bucky, and he would have to find a way to save his friend from the darkness that had consumed him. As the rain continued to fall in that distant European city, Alexander Lukin watched the pieces of his plan fall into place. The power of the cosmic cube was within his grasp, and with it, the ability to reshape the world according to his will. But as he looked out into the night, he knew that Captain America was coming, and with him, the ghosts of a war that had never truly ended. As the revelation of the Winter Soldier's true identity settled over Steve Rogers, it felt like a wound reopening, one that had never fully healed. The discovery that Bucky Barnes, his closest friend, had been turned into a weapon by their former enemies was almost too much to bear. But Captain America was not a man who would allow grief to paralyze him. He was a soldier, and there was a battle to be fought. A battle to save his friend from the shadowy forces that had claimed his soul. The world continued to move, unaware of the turmoil within Steve's heart. In Washington, D.C., a city that had seen the rise and fall of countless powers, a new threat began to emerge. Alexander Lukin, a man who had carefully woven himself into the fabric of global politics and finance, was on the move. His acquisition of the cosmic cube had not gone unnoticed by those who understood its power. With this artifact, Lukin had the ability to reshape reality itself, a power that could tip the balance of the world in his favor. But Lukin was no mere tyrant seeking power for its own sake. He was a man with a purpose, driven by a past that had shaped his every move. In the shadows, he commanded not just armies, but a force even more deadly, the Winter Soldier. The assassin had become his greatest weapon, striking fear into the hearts of those who opposed him. Yet Lukin's ambitions were not purely his own. Unbeknownst to him, he was playing a dangerous game with forces far beyond his control. As Steve delved deeper into the mystery of Bucky's transformation, he found himself drawn back into the world of espionage, a world he had always despised, with its secrets and lies. But now he had no choice. His investigation led him to a series of locations tied to the Winter Soldier's activities. Each one painted a grim picture of Bucky's life since the war, a life filled with violence and manipulation. The Soviets had not only erased Bucky's memories, but had also conditioned him to be the perfect killer, devoid of empathy or remorse. Steve's journey took him across the globe, from the alleys of Berlin to the backstreets of Moscow, following a trail of blood and deceit. Along the way, he encountered former spies, mercenaries, and double agents, each with their own pieces of the puzzle. They spoke of a ghost, a man who could strike from the shadows and disappear without a trace. They spoke of the Winter Soldier with a mix of fear and awe, as if he were more myth than man. But to Steve, he was no myth. He was Bucky. In one of these encounters, Steve crossed paths with a former KGB agent who had first-hand knowledge of the Winter Soldier program. The man, old and weary, had spent his life serving a regime that no longer existed, but the fear in his eyes as he spoke of the Winter Soldier was all too real. He told Steve of a project that had spanned decades, an effort to create the ultimate covert operative. The Winter Soldier was their greatest success, but also their greatest failure. For despite their best efforts, something within Bucky had resisted complete control. There were moments, brief and fleeting, when the man he had once been would surface, only to be buried again beneath layers of brainwashing. It was during one such moment that Bucky had left a clue, a fragment of a memory that had somehow survived the years of conditioning. It was a name, a place that held significance to him and Steve during the war. The name was Karpov, a reference to Vasily Karpov, the Soviet officer who had overseen Bucky's transformation. The place was a small town in Russia, where Bucky had once been stationed during his time as the Winter Soldier. This clue, though small, gave Steve a sliver of hope. It meant that Bucky was still in there, somewhere, fighting to break free. Determined to find his friend, Steve made his way to Russia, a land steeped in cold and silence. The town where Bucky had been stationed was a desolate place, forgotten by time and progress. Here, Steve found the remnants of the Winter Soldier program, a dilapidated facility hidden in the mountains, where the Soviets had conducted their most secretive experiments. The facility was long abandoned, but the ghosts of its past remained. Inside, Steve discovered the records of the program, files that detailed the horrific methods used to break Bucky's will. The files spoke of psychological torture, physical conditioning, and relentless brainwashing, all designed to strip away his identity and replace it with a weaponized persona. But as Steve read through the documents, he noticed something strange. There were gaps, periods where Bucky had gone missing from their control. These gaps corresponded with times when the Winter Soldier was believed to have been inactive. It was during these times that Bucky had tried to escape, only to be recaptured and subjected to even more brutal conditioning. As Steve pieced together the fragmented history of Bucky's life as the Winter Soldier, he realized the full extent of the tragedy. His friend had been used, broken, and remade over and over again, a cycle of suffering that seemed never-ending. But within that cycle, there was still hope. Bucky had fought back, even if only in small ways, leaving behind traces of his true self in the hopes that someone, someday, would find them. The final piece of the puzzle came when Steve encountered a man who had been a handler for the Winter Soldier. This man, hardened by years of service to the Soviet state, spoke with a mixture of pride and regret. He had trained the Winter Soldier, but he had also seen the man behind the mask. He told Steve of a mission years ago where the Winter Soldier had failed to complete his objective. The target had been a civilian, a woman who bore a resemblance to someone Bucky had known in his past life. In that moment, the man said the Winter Soldier hesitated. It was the first and only time he had done so. The hesitation had cost the lives of several operatives, and Bucky had been punished severely for it, but the fact remained. There was still something human within him.
With this knowledge, Steve knew what he had to do. He had to find Bucky, confront him, and somehow reach the man he had once known. But it would not be easy. The Winter Soldier was a trained killer, capable of outmaneuvering even the best. And with Lucan controlling him, Bucky was more dangerous than ever. As Steve prepared for the inevitable confrontation, he could not help but reflect on the journey that had brought him here. The return of Bucky Barnes, though shrouded in pain and loss, had given him a new purpose. He would not allow his friend to be lost to the darkness. He would fight not just for justice, but for redemption, for Bucky's soul, and perhaps, in doing so, for his own. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but Captain America had faced worse odds before, and this time the stakes were personal. The ghost of the past had returned, But Steve Rogers was ready to face it head-on. The battle for Bucky's soul had only just begun, and Captain America would stop at nothing to save his friend from the shadow that had consumed him. As Steve Rogers pursued the elusive trail left by the Winter Soldier, the lines between past and present blurred in ways that he could never have anticipated. The memories of Bucky Barnes, the loyal friend and comrade in arms, haunted Steve with increasing intensity. Yet, as the shadows of the past encroached upon his thoughts, the reality of the Winter Soldier's existence brought a more immediate and chilling challenge. The journey had taken Steve across continents, from the hushed alleys of European cities to the frozen wastelands of Russia. Each step brought him closer to uncovering the truth, yet it was a truth he feared more than any enemy he had ever faced. The Winter Soldier was not just an assassin. He was the product of a twisted legacy that had begun decades earlier, during the darkest days of the Cold War. But now, that legacy was poised to unleash devastation on a global scale, with Bucky as its unwilling instrument. In the heart of this storm stood Alexander Lukin, a man who had mastered the art of manipulation, steering events from the shadows. With the cosmic cube in his possession, Lukin wielded a power that could reshape the world. Yet, despite this power, Lukin was not entirely in control of his own fate. A malevolent force lurked within him, a force that had long been thought vanquished, the spirit of the Red Skull. The Red Skull's consciousness had been transferred into Lukin during the acquisition of the cube, and now the two minds waged a silent war for dominance within the same body. This unholy alliance threatened not just Steve Rogers, but the entire world. Lukin, influenced by the Red Skull's dark desires, directed the Winter Soldier with cold precision. The assassin's missions grew bolder and more brutal, each one a step towards Lukin's ultimate goal. But with each mission, the cracks in the Winter Soldier's conditioning began to show. The fragments of Bucky Barnes' identity, long buried beneath layers of brainwashing, started to resurface in ways that neither Lukin nor the Red Skull could fully control. In a fortified stronghold in Eastern Europe, Steve Rogers finally came face to face with the man who had once been his closest friend. The confrontation was inevitable, and Steve knew that he would have to confront the Winter Soldier not as an enemy, but as the friend he had lost. The stronghold was a relic of the Soviet era, filled with the remnants of a regime that had long since fallen. Within its walls, the Winter Soldier awaited his orders, unaware that his next mission would bring him into direct conflict with the man who had once been his brother in arms. As Steve infiltrated the stronghold, he moved with the skill and precision of the seasoned warrior he was. His heart, however, was heavy with the knowledge of what he was about to face. The corridors of the stronghold were lined with the tools of war, old weapons, surveillance equipment, and the silent echoes of the past. It was in these cold, sterile halls that the Soviets had honed Bucky into the perfect assassin, and it was here that Steve would have to break through decades of conditioning to reach the man beneath the mask. The moment of revelation came in a room filled with old monitors, flickering with images of past missions. Missions that Bucky had carried out with ruthless efficiency. Steve stepped into the room, his shield ready, his senses alert. But what he found was not an ambush, not an immediate attack, but something far more heartbreaking. The Winter Soldier stood at the far end of the room, his back turned, staring at one of the screens. On the screen, a black and white image played out, an image of a young Bucky Barnes, standing beside Steve Rogers during a moment of camaraderie in the war. For a brief moment, it was as if time itself had stopped. Steve took a step forward, his voice catching in his throat as he called out to his friend. Bucky. The name hung in the air, laden with years of sorrow, hope, and a desperate need for redemption. The Winter Soldier did not immediately respond. His posture remained rigid, the gun in his hand held with the ease of a man trained to kill without hesitation. But then, Slowly, he turned to face Steve. The mask that covered the lower half of his face hid any expression, but his eyes, those eyes that Steve had known so well, told a story of pain and confusion. The memories were there, struggling to break free, but the conditioning held them back, twisting them into something unrecognizable. Steve took another step forward, lowering his shield slightly as he continued to speak. He told Bucky of their past, of the battles they had fought together, of the bond they had shared. He spoke of the missions, the laughter, the sacrifices. He reminded Bucky of who he was, of who he had been, in the hopes of reaching the man buried deep within. For a moment, it seemed as though Steve's words were getting through. The Winter Soldier hesitated, his grip on the gun faltering. His eyes, once cold and unfeeling, now flickered with something Steve recognized. Familiarity, perhaps even recognition. But just as quickly as it had appeared, it was gone. The training, the conditioning, the years of brainwashing all came crashing back with brutal force. The Winter Soldier raised his gun, his movements now mechanical, as if his body was acting against his will. The mask of the assassin slipped back into place, and with it, the persona that the Soviets had created. He was no longer Bucky Barnes. He was the Winter Soldier, and his target was Steve Rogers. The room erupted into violence as the Winter Soldier opened fire. Steve, despite the emotional weight of the moment, reacted with the instincts of a warrior. He raised his shield, deflecting the bullets as he closed the distance between them. But he could not bring himself to strike back with the full force he was capable of. This was not just another enemy, this was Bucky. The battle between them was fierce, each man a match for the other in skill and determination. Steve fought with the hope of saving his friend, while the Winter Soldier fought with the precision of a trained killer. The stronghold echoed with the sounds of their struggle, metal clashing against metal, the sharp crack of gunfire, the grunts of exertion as they each tried to gain the upper hand. In the midst of the chaos, Steve continued to call out to Bucky, his words a lifeline in the storm. He spoke of the past, of memories that should have been impossible for the Winter Soldier to remember. And yet, something in those words seemed to resonate, if only for a moment. The Winter Soldier hesitated again, his movements faltering as the memories fought to surface. But the conditioning was too strong. With a snarl of frustration, the Winter Soldier broke away, retreating deeper into the stronghold. Steve, torn between the need to stop him and the desire to reach his friend, pursued him through the labyrinth of corridors. The battle continued, but now there was a desperation in the Winter Soldier's attacks, as if he were fighting not just Steve, but the memories that threatened to overwhelm him. Finally, the confrontation reached a critical point. In a dimly lit room filled with the remnants of old Soviet experiments, Steve managed to disarm the Winter Soldier, sending his gun skidding across the floor. They were both exhausted, bruised, and battered, but neither man was willing to give up. Steve, panting from the exertion, lowered his shield once more and took a step closer. "Bucky, you don't have to do this. You're not a weapon. You're my friend." The words hung in the air, a final plea that cut through the years of brainwashing. The Winter Soldier stood still, his chest heaving with the effort of suppressing the memories that Steve's words had stirred. For the first time, Steve saw a crack in the assassin's resolve, a glimmer of the man he had once known. But before the moment could fully take hold, an explosion rocked the stronghold, sending shockwaves through the structure. Lukin, realizing that his control over the Winter Soldier was slipping, had initiated a failsafe, a self-destruct sequence designed to bury the secrets of the facility, and with them any trace of the Winter Soldier's true identity. The walls began to collapse, debris raining down as the structure shook violently. Steve reached out to Bucky, desperate to pull him to safety, But the Winter Soldier, driven by a mixture of confusion and fear, recoiled from his touch. With a final, anguished look, he turned and fled into the chaos, disappearing into the smoke and flames. Steve tried to follow, but the collapsing structure forced him back. He watched helplessly as the stronghold crumbled, taking with it the man he had come to save. In the end, Steve was left standing in the ruins, the weight of the revelation bearing down on him like a physical blow. Bucky was alive, but he was lost, trapped in a web of manipulation and control that had twisted him into something unrecognizable. The battle was over, but the war for Bucky's soul had only just begun. Steve Rogers, battered and bruised, made his way out of the wreckage, his heart heavy with the knowledge that his friend was out there, somewhere, still fighting against the chains that bound him. The revelation of the Winter Soldier's true identity had shattered the past, but it had also given Steve a new purpose. He would find Bucky, no matter the cost, and he would not rest until his friend was free. The revelation that Bucky Barnes, Steve Rogers' closest friend from the war, had survived only to be turned into the deadly assassin known as the Winter Soldier, weighed heavily on Steve's heart. The burden of this truth brought back memories of a time long past, a time when Steve was a young man, full of ideals and hope, fighting in a war that was supposed to end all wars. But now, in the modern world, Steve felt more out of place than ever, haunted by the ghosts of his past and the realization that everything he once knew was gone, or worse, corrupted. As Steve Rogers grappled with the shocking discovery of Bucky's transformation, he found himself increasingly aware of just how much the world had changed since he had been frozen in ice decades ago. The passage of time had left him isolated in a world that moved faster, with people and technology that he struggled to understand. The faces of old friends, the landscapes of familiar places. Everything had been altered by time, leaving Steve with the sense that he was a man out of time, fighting battles in a world that no longer seemed to need him in the way it once did. Steve's sense of dislocation was heightened by the constant reminders of his past. The old photographs, the museum exhibits dedicated to Captain America, and the memorials to fallen comrades all served to reinforce the chasm between the man he was then and the man he was now. He visited the Smithsonian Institution's exhibit on Captain America, where the artifacts of his life were displayed for the public. His original shield, the uniforms, the photographs of him with the Howling Commandos. It was a sobering experience, walking through the halls where his own life had been reduced to a series of displays and plaques. The world saw him as a legend, a relic of a bygone era, but to Steve, it was a reminder of all that he had lost. The friends who had died, the life he had been denied, and now, the revelation that his best friend had been turned into a weapon against everything they had once fought for. In moments of solitude, Steve found himself reflecting on what it meant to be Captain America in a world that had moved on without him. The ideals he had fought for, freedom, justice, and the American way, seemed more complicated now, mired in the murky waters of modern geopolitics and corporate interests. The clarity of the moral battles of World War II had given way to a world of shades of gray, where enemies were not always clearly defined, and the lines between right and wrong were often blurred. Steve struggled with these new complexities, wondering if there was still a place for a man like him in such a world. Amidst these reflections, Steve's thoughts were never far from Bucky. The knowledge that his best friend had been alive all this time, only to be turned into a weapon by their enemies, gnawed at him. The Bucky he had known was a man of loyalty and bravery, someone who had always stood by his side no matter the odds. Now, that same man was a ghost, a living weapon used by forces that sought to destabilize the very world Steve had sworn to protect. The weight of this revelation was almost too much to bear, and yet it also fueled Steve's resolve. He would not allow Bucky to be lost to the darkness that had claimed him. He would fight, not just to save the world from the Winter Soldier, but to save Bucky from the chains that bound him. As Steve continued his mission, the world around him seemed to close in, the modern cityscapes and advanced technology only reinforcing his sense of alienation. He spent hours poring over old files, tracking down leads on the Winter Soldier's movements, and trying to piece together the fragments of Bucky's past that had been erased by his Soviet handlers. The more he uncovered, the more it became clear that Bucky's transformation was not just the result of brainwashing, but of a systematic effort to erase his identity and replace it with that of the perfect assassin. Steve's determination to break through the conditioning that had been forced upon Bucky grew stronger with each new piece of information he uncovered. The search for Bucky took Steve to places that were both familiar and foreign. He revisited old battlegrounds, now turned into memorials or commercial developments, where the echoes of the past still lingered. In Eastern Europe, he tracked the Winter Soldier's movements through old Soviet installations, abandoned safe houses, and underground networks that had once been part of the vast machinery of Cold War espionage. The remnants of the Soviet regime were everywhere: rusted machinery, faded propaganda posters, and the silent, eerie corridors of long-abandoned facilities where men like Bucky had been turned into tools of war. Throughout this journey, Steve was haunted by the memories of his time with Bucky. He recalled the early days, when Bucky was just a kid from Brooklyn who had followed him into war, always ready with a joke or a smile to lighten the mood. Those memories were a lifeline for Steve, a reminder of the man he was trying to save. But they were also a source of pain, as each memory was tinged with the knowledge of what Bucky had become. The moments of camaraderie, the battles fought side by side, the laughter and the shared sense of purpose, all of it seemed distant now, overshadowed by the grim reality of the present. As Steve delved deeper into the mystery of the Winter Soldier, he began to uncover more about the program that had created him. The Red Room, the secret Soviet facility where Bucky had been reprogrammed, was a name that struck fear into the hearts of even the most hardened operatives. It was here that the Soviets had perfected the art of psychological manipulation and brainwashing, creating a cadre of assassins who were loyal only to the state. The Winter Soldier was their greatest success, a weapon of unparalleled skill and lethality, but also a man who had been stripped of his identity, his memories, and his soul. Steve's search led him to confront some of the darkest elements of the Cold War era: the secret projects, the hidden atrocities, and the men who had overseen them. He encountered old enemies, Soviet operatives who had once fought against him in the shadows of the Iron Curtain, now reduced to shadows themselves, living out their days in anonymity and fear. Some of them were willing to talk, to provide information in exchange for protection or out of a sense of guilt for what they had been part of. Others resisted, clinging to the old loyalties and ideologies that had defined their lives. But despite the danger, Steve pressed on, driven by the need to find Bucky and bring him back. He knew that the path ahead would be difficult, that the forces arrayed against him were formidable, but he also knew that he could not give up. Bucky was more than just a friend. He was a symbol of everything Steve had fought for during the war. The bond they shared was one forged in the crucible of battle, and Steve was determined to honor that bond, no matter the cost. In the moments of quiet between missions, Steve found himself reflecting on his own place in the world. The weight of history of being Captain America pressed down on him like never before. He was a man out of time, a soldier from another era, trying to find his way in a world that had changed beyond recognition. The ideals he had fought for seemed distant now, buried beneath the complexities of the modern age. But even in the face of this uncertainty, Steve held on to the belief that some things were worth fighting for: friendship, loyalty, and the hope of redemption. In the shadows of modern-day New York City, a dark plan was taking shape, orchestrated by a figure as cunning as he was malevolent: the Red Skull. The arch-nemesis of Captain America, the Red Skull had long been presumed dead, a relic of a bygone era. But evil like his does not perish so easily. Using a method that defied the natural order, the Red Skull had transferred his consciousness into a new body, and with this new life came a renewed ambition to destroy everything Steve Rogers stood for. The Red Skull's scheme was as intricate as it was diabolical, intertwining the past and the present in a web of deception. At the heart of this plan was the Cosmic Cube, a powerful artifact capable of altering reality itself. The Skull had coveted this object for years, understanding its immense potential to reshape the world according to his twisted vision. But the cube was not merely a tool for destruction. It was the key to manipulating Steve Rogers, to breaking the spirit of Captain America in a way that brute force could never achieve. The Red Skull's gambit began with the use of the Winter Soldier, the perfect weapon to strike at Steve's heart. Bucky Barnes, once Steve's closest friend and ally, had been transformed into the Winter Soldier through Soviet brainwashing and had unknowingly served the Red Skull's purposes. The Skull was well aware of the bond between Steve and Bucky, and he sought to exploit this bond to his advantage. By keeping Bucky under his control, the Skull had a pawn capable of delivering not just physical blows, but emotional devastation as well. To set his plan in motion, the Red Skull manipulated a series of events that would lead Steve directly into his trap. Using his vast network of operatives and resources, he orchestrated a complex series of attacks, each designed to chip away at Steve's resolve. These attacks ranged from targeted strikes on SHIELD assets to assassinations of key figures in the intelligence community, all carried out with precision by the Winter Soldier. The chaos created by these operations was designed to overwhelm Steve, to stretch his resources thin, and to make him question his ability to protect those he cared about. As Steve struggled to respond to the escalating threats, the Red Skull's true plan began to unfold. The Skull had positioned himself within the corporate world, using the identity of Alexander Lukin, the powerful CEO of Kronos Corporation. This disguise allowed him to operate in plain sight, manipulating global events from the highest levels of power without drawing suspicion. Through Kronos, the Red Skull was able to gain control of the Cosmic Cube, though it was in a weakened state. The cube's power had been diminished, but in the hands of the Red Skull, even a fraction of its strength was enough to unleash devastation. With the cube in his possession, the Red Skull initiated the next phase of his gambit, the psychological warfare against Steve Rogers. The Skull knew that brute force alone would not be enough to defeat Captain America. He needed to break Steve's spirit, to make him doubt himself and everything he had ever fought for. Using the cube's reality-altering abilities, the Skull began to manipulate Steve's perceptions, creating illusions that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. These illusions played on Steve's deepest fears and insecurities, haunting him with visions of a world where everything he held dear was corrupted or destroyed. One of the Skull's most insidious tactics was to exploit Steve's memories of the past. The cube allowed the Skull to recreate moments from Steve's life, twisting them into grotesque parodies of what they had once been. Steve would see the faces of old friends, hear the voices of long-dead comrades, only for these comforting memories to dissolve into nightmares where those same friends turned against him, accusing him of failing them. The Skull's goal was to make Steve question his own sanity, to make him believe that his very identity as Captain America was a lie built on the corpses of those he could not save. The psychological toll of these attacks weighed heavily on Steve. He began to doubt himself in ways he never had before. Was he truly the hero the world saw him as, or was he just a man out of time, clinging to outdated ideals in a world that had moved on? The Red Skull's manipulations were designed to isolate Steve, to make him feel alone and outmatched in a world where his enemies were not just external, but internal as well. As Steve struggled with these doubts, the Red Skull moved to tighten the noose. he orchestrated a public assassination attempt on a prominent politician, using the Winter Soldier as the triggerman. The attack was designed to draw Captain America out into the open, to force a confrontation that would further weaken Steve's resolve. But more than that, the assassination was meant to sow discord and distrust among the people Steve had sworn to protect. The Red Skull understood that if he could turn the public against Captain America, it would be a victory more devastating than any physical defeat. The assassination attempt was successful, plunging the nation into chaos. The Winter Soldier, acting under the Skull's orders, struck with deadly precision, leaving behind a scene of carnage that was broadcast across the world. The media frenzy that followed played directly into the Skull's hands, painting Captain America as a relic of a failed system, unable to protect the very ideals he represented. The public, frightened and angry, began to question whether Captain America was still the hero they needed, or if he had become a symbol of a bygone era that no longer had a place in the modern world. Amidst this turmoil, the Red Skull made his next move, using the cosmic cube to influence key figures within the government and military. The cube's power allowed him to subtly manipulate their decisions, guiding them towards actions that would further destabilize the country and weaken Steve's position. The Skull's manipulations were so subtle that those affected were unaware that their thoughts and actions were being influenced, making the Skull's control all the more dangerous. As the nation teetered on the brink of chaos, Steve Rogers found himself facing the greatest challenge of his life. The Red Skull's gambit had brought him to the edge, forcing him to confront not just the physical threat posed by the Winter Soldier, but the psychological and emotional toll of his long battle against evil. The Skull's plan was nearing its climax, and Steve knew that the final confrontation was inevitable. But even as he prepared for this battle, Steve remained determined to save Bucky, to break through the brainwashing that had turned his friend into a weapon of terror. In the final stages of his plan, the Red Skull sought to push Steve beyond the breaking point. He arranged for a confrontation between Steve and the Winter Soldier, knowing that the sight of his friend, transformed into a remorseless killer, would be the ultimate test of Steve's resolve. The battle that ensued was brutal, with both men pushing themselves to their limits. But even as they fought, Steve's focus remained on saving Bucky, on reaching the man who had been buried beneath layers of conditioning and manipulation. The Red Skull watched from the shadows, confident that his plan was about to reach its successful conclusion. He believed that he had finally found a way to destroy Captain America, not with a bullet or a bomb, but by turning Steve's own ideals against him. But in his arrogance, the Skull underestimated the strength of Steve's determination, the unbreakable bond of friendship that had driven him through every trial and tribulation. As the battle raged on, Steve began to break through the Winter Soldier's conditioning, reminding Bucky of who he truly was. The memories of their time together, the shared experiences of a life before the war, began to surface in Bucky's mind, weakening the hold that the Red Skull had over him. In the end, it was not the Red Skull's power or his machinations that decided the outcome, but the enduring power of friendship and loyalty. The Red Skull's gambit, which had been so carefully planned and executed, ultimately failed to achieve its goal. Though he had pushed Steve Rogers to the brink, he had not broken him. Steve's resolve, his belief in the goodness of his friend, and his unwavering commitment to the ideals he represented proved stronger than the Red Skull's hatred and ambition. In the aftermath of the battle, the Red Skull's plans were left in ruins, and Steve Rogers emerged victorious, though not without scars. The battle had taken its toll on him, both physically and emotionally, but it had also reaffirmed his belief in the values he had always fought for. The Red Skull's gambit had been a dangerous and nearly devastating test, but in the end, it only served to strengthen Steve's resolve and his determination to protect the world from those who would seek to destroy it. In the wake of the fierce confrontation with the Winter Soldier, Captain America found himself grappling with the fallout from the battle. While he had managed to regain some control over Bucky, the fight had taken a toll, and the weight of recent events hung heavily over him. However, one critical thread of the Red Skull's plan remained unresolved: the Cosmic Cube. The Red Skull's possession of the cube had been a hidden threat, its full implications yet to be realized. It was an artifact with the power to reshape reality, and its influence was something Steve Rogers could not ignore. As Steve regrouped and took stock of his allies, he began to focus on the next steps. The Cosmic Cube was a powerful object, an artifact that had been sought by various factions over the years due to its reality-altering capabilities. Its origins were steeped in mystery, a relic of an ancient cosmic power that had once been wielded by gods and beings of immense strength. The cube's ability to grant almost limitless power made it a critical piece in any grand scheme for domination or destruction. The cube itself had a tumultuous history. It was first discovered by the Allies during World War II and became a coveted object of interest for both the Red Skull and various other factions. It had been hidden away after the war, but its legacy and the potential for its misuse continued to be a concern. The Red Skull's recent acquisition of the cube meant that he now had the potential to wield its power, and this raised grave concerns for Captain America and his allies. To understand the full extent of the threat posed by the cube, Steve began a thorough investigation into its history and properties. He reached out to experts, both within S.H.I.E.L.D. and beyond, who had knowledge of the artifact. Among these experts was Dr. Arnim Zola, a scientist with a deep understanding of the cube's origins and capabilities. Zola had been a nemesis of Steve during the war and had extensive knowledge of Hydra's experiments with the cube. However, Zola was a man whose allegiance had shifted over time, and his current motivations were ambiguous. Steve's interactions with Zola were fraught with tension. Zola, while knowledgeable, was also an opportunist. He had his own agenda and was not above leveraging his knowledge for personal gain. As Steve questioned him, Zola revealed that the Cosmic Cube was not merely a powerful object, but a conduit for a cosmic force known as the Beyonder. This entity had the ability to alter reality on a fundamental level, making the cube a weapon of unprecedented power. Zola explained that the cube had been used in various experiments over the years, and its power had been harnessed and manipulated by different hands. The Red Skull's current use of the cube involved reactivating its dormant energies and focusing them on specific targets. This was not just a matter of using the cube's power directly. It was about manipulating its influence to create chaos and disorder on a global scale. As Steve absorbed this information, he realized the gravity of the situation. The Red Skull's manipulation of the cube was not just about achieving his personal goals. It was a broader scheme designed to destabilize entire nations, to shift the balance of power, and to create a world where he could rule unchallenged. The cube's power made it possible for him to reshape reality itself, to make his vision of global domination a reality. Steve's efforts to counter this threat led him to gather his most trusted allies. He worked closely with Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, who had experience dealing with the Red Skull and his machinations. Together, they began to devise a plan to locate and neutralize the Cosmic Cube before it could be used to devastating effect. The search for the cube took Steve and his team to various locations around the world. They traveled to hidden bases, secret facilities, and ancient sites that had once been linked to the cube's history. The journey was perilous, filled with encounters with Red Skull's agents and other obstacles designed to protect the cube from discovery. As they delved deeper into their search, Steve and his allies uncovered clues that led them to a hidden stronghold where the cube was being held. The stronghold was a high-tech fortress, heavily guarded and protected by advanced security systems. The Red Skull had fortified it to ensure that the cube remained safe from any attempts to retrieve or destroy it. The infiltration of the stronghold was a daring operation. Steve and his team used a combination of stealth, subterfuge, and brute force to breach the fortress. The battle that ensued was fierce, with Steve facing off against numerous agents and automated defenses designed to protect the cube. Despite the challenges, the team pressed on, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the world rested on their shoulders. In the heart of the stronghold, Steve finally confronted the Red Skull. The Red Skull was both a formidable opponent and a master of psychological manipulation. He sought to undermine Steve's resolve, using the cube's power to create illusions and distort reality in an attempt to break Steve's spirit. The confrontation was intense, a clash of ideologies and wills. The Red Skull's plan was to use the cube to amplify his own power, to transform his dreams of global domination into a reality. He sought to make himself the supreme ruler of a world reshaped by his vision, a world where resistance was futile and where his authority was absolute. The cube's power was key to this transformation, and the Red Skull was determined to wield it to its fullest extent. Steve, however, was resolute. He refused to be swayed by the Red Skull's attempts to manipulate him. With the help of his allies, he fought back against the illusions and distortions created by the cube. The battle was not just a physical struggle. It was a fight to maintain clarity and conviction in the face of overwhelming odds. As the battle raged on, Steve's determination and the strength of his convictions began to turn the tide. The Red Skull's control over the cube weakened as Steve's focus and resilience proved stronger than the Skull's manipulations. In a climactic moment, Steve managed to gain control of the cube, using its power to undo the damage caused by the Red Skull's machinations. With the cube in his possession, Steve faced a critical decision. The power of the cube was immense, and its potential for both creation and destruction was boundless. Steve recognized that it could not be allowed to fall into the wrong hands, and he was determined to ensure that it was secured and kept out of reach of those who would use it for nefarious purposes. The resolution of this crisis involved not only the defeat of the Red Skull, but also the careful handling of the cosmic cube's power. Steve and his allies worked to ensure that the cube was safely contained, its power neutralized to prevent any further misuse. The Red Skull's plans had been thwarted, but the threat of the cube's power remained a lingering concern. In the aftermath of the conflict, Steve Rogers faced the challenge of moving forward in a world that had been forever changed by the events that had transpired. The cosmic cube had been a catalyst for a series of dramatic and destructive events, but its resolution marked a new chapter in Steve's life. A chapter where the lessons learned from these trials would guide him as he continued to fight for justice and protect the world from threats both old and new.
Amid the tumultuous aftermath of the confrontation with the Red Skull, Captain America found himself facing a personal and emotional battleground that was as critical as any physical fight. The cosmic cube had been secured, but the true heart of the crisis lay in the struggle to save Bucky Barnes, his oldest friend and now a remorseless weapon of terror known as the Winter Soldier. Bucky Barnes had been a beloved comrade during World War II, fighting alongside Steve Rogers as the original Captain America. Together, they had faced countless dangers and forged a bond of brotherhood. However, Bucky had seemingly perished in a tragic accident during the war, only to be revealed later as the Winter Soldier, a covert operative of immense skill who had been brainwashed and manipulated by the Red Skull and Soviet forces. The revelation of Bucky's existence had been a crushing blow for Steve, who had been forced to confront the harsh reality of his friend's fate. As Steve grappled with this new reality, his thoughts were consumed by the desire to save Bucky from the clutches of his conditioning. The Winter Soldier was a formidable adversary, his mind twisted and controlled by years of psychological manipulation. Steve understood that saving Bucky was not just about defeating an enemy. It was about breaking through the layers of brainwashing and emotional torment that had turned his friend into a weapon. The battle to reclaim Bucky's soul began with a series of intense confrontations between Steve and the Winter Soldier. The two combatants clashed in a series of brutal encounters, each more desperate and heartbreaking than the last. Steve's approach was not just to defeat Bucky in battle, but to reach out to the man beneath the mask, to remind him of the person he once was. In these confrontations, Steve fought with a mixture of fierce determination and profound sorrow. He knew that Bucky's actions were not truly his own, but were driven by the Red Skull's manipulations and the relentless conditioning of the Winter Soldier program. Each fight was a struggle not just against a powerful adversary, but against the very idea of losing a friend forever. Steve's words and actions during these battles were imbued with a deep sense of urgency and compassion. He tried to reach Bucky, to appeal to the memories and emotions buried beneath the surface, to remind him of their shared past and the values they had once stood for. Amidst these battles, Steve's allies played a crucial role in supporting his mission. Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, was particularly instrumental. Her own history with the Winter Soldier and her understanding of psychological conditioning made her a valuable asset. Natasha worked to provide Steve with insights into the Winter Soldier's programming, helping him to devise strategies that would not only subdue his opponent, but also provide opportunities for Bucky to regain control over his own mind. The fight to save Bucky's soul was not limited to physical battles. Steve and his allies embarked on a quest to uncover the full extent of the Winter Soldier's conditioning and the methods used to brainwash him. They delved into the darkest corners of Soviet archives, seeking any information that could provide clues to breaking the Winter Soldier's programming. This investigation revealed the horrifying extent of the psychological manipulation that Bucky had undergone. The Winter Soldier had been subjected to a series of intensive brainwashing techniques designed to erase his previous identity and instill a new, unwavering loyalty to his handlers. As Steve delved deeper into the nature of the Winter Soldier's conditioning, he found that the key to breaking through the mental barriers lay in confronting the trauma that had been inflicted upon Bucky. The brainwashing had not only erased Bucky's memories, but had also implanted a series of triggers and conditioning that compelled him to act with cold efficiency. The goal was to destabilize Bucky's mind and force him to follow orders without question. Realizing that he needed to address these triggers directly, Steve focused on creating situations that would challenge the Winter Soldier's conditioning. He aimed to confront Bucky with moments from their shared past, hoping that these encounters would spark a glimmer of recognition and humanity. This strategy was risky and required careful planning, as exposing Bucky to these triggers could also lead to violent reactions. One of the pivotal moments in the battle for Bucky's soul came during a confrontation in an abandoned warehouse, a place steeped in memories from their past missions. Steve orchestrated this encounter with the hope that the familiar surroundings would trigger something deep within Bucky's psyche. As they fought, Steve spoke to Bucky, recounting shared experiences and old battles. He spoke of the camaraderie they had shared and the promises they had made to each other. Steve's words were imbued with a mixture of hope and desperation, aimed at breaking through the layers of conditioning that had silenced Bucky's true self. In the heat of the battle, something remarkable began to happen. Bucky's movements became more hesitant, his attacks less focused. For the first time, there was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Steve's words and the familiarity of the surroundings seemed to be reaching through the fog of brainwashing, stirring fragments of the old Bucky to the surface. This was a delicate and dangerous moment, as the Winter Soldier's conditioning could still override his actions at any time. The breakthrough came when Bucky, in a moment of vulnerability, was confronted with a powerful memory from his past. Steve had orchestrated a scene that mirrored a pivotal moment from their wartime experiences, one that had a deep emotional impact on Bucky. As Bucky relived this memory, the conditioning began to falter, and the Winter Soldier's grip on his mind weakened. In the midst of this struggle, Steve reached out to Bucky, offering a final plea for him to remember who he truly was. He spoke of their shared history, their friendship, and the values they had fought for together. This emotional appeal struck a chord with Bucky, who began to struggle against the programming that had controlled him for so long. The climax of the battle for Bucky's soul occurred in a moment of profound emotional confrontation. Steve and Bucky faced each other, both physically and emotionally exhausted. The Winter Soldier's conditioning was at its breaking point, and Bucky's true self emerged, torn between the programming and the memories of his past. In this critical moment, Bucky made a choice, rejecting the Winter Soldier's persona and embracing the fragments of his former self. With Bucky's identity restored, Steve's mission was far from over. The battle had been won, but the work of helping Bucky recover from the psychological trauma remained. The process of healing would be long and challenging, but the victory in reclaiming Bucky's soul was a testament to the enduring power of friendship and the strength of the human spirit. As Bucky began the journey of rebuilding his life, Steve remained by his side, providing support and understanding. The fight for Bucky's soul had been a harrowing and intense experience, but it had reaffirmed Steve's belief in the possibility of redemption and the enduring bond of friendship. Together, they faced the future with a renewed sense of hope and determination, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. As the battle to reclaim Bucky Barnes' soul drew to a close, Captain America faced one final, harrowing confrontation. The war against the Red Skull was nearing its climax, and with the Cosmic Cube's influence and Bucky's struggle behind them, Steve Rogers prepared for the ultimate showdown with his old enemy. This confrontation would determine not just the fate of his friend, but the future of a world teetering on the brink of chaos. The Red Skull, a master strategist and a figure of malevolent ambition, had managed to evade capture despite the efforts of Steve and his allies. His plans had been thwarted repeatedly, but he remained a looming threat, his schemes far from over. As the battle for the Cosmic Cube concluded, the Red Skull had retreated to a fortified position, a stronghold designed to protect him from any further attempts to stop his machinations. Steve's determination to put an end to the Red Skull's reign of terror led him to this final confrontation. The Red Skull had fortified himself within an imposing, high-tech facility located in a remote area. This stronghold was equipped with advanced security systems, automated defenses, and a private army of loyal operatives. It was a fortress designed to withstand any assault and to serve as the Red Skull's last stand. As Steve and his team approached the stronghold, they knew that the battle would be fierce. The Red Skull's forces were ready and prepared to defend their leader at all costs. Steve's plan was to breach the stronghold, neutralize the defenses, and confront the Red Skull directly. The mission was fraught with danger, but the stakes were higher than ever. The outcome of this confrontation would determine the fate of the Cosmic Cube and the future of the world. The initial assault on the stronghold was intense. Steve and his allies, including Natasha Romanoff and Bucky Barnes, fought their way through layers of security and defenses. The stronghold was a labyrinth of high-tech security measures, each designed to thwart any intrusion. The team utilized a combination of stealth, strategic planning, and brute force to navigate these obstacles. As they advanced deeper into the stronghold, they encountered heavily armed guards and automated defenses. The team engaged in a series of battles, each one more challenging than the last. The Red Skull had anticipated an assault and had prepared his defenses accordingly. The confrontations were marked by a mixture of high-tech weaponry, tactical maneuvering, and relentless combat. Throughout the assault, Steve's focus remained unwavering. He knew that the final confrontation with the Red Skull was the ultimate goal, and every step forward brought him closer to that pivotal moment. The battles were grueling, but Steve's determination and the support of his allies kept them moving forward. The stronghold was a fortress of modern warfare, but Steve's resolve was driven by a deep sense of purpose and justice. As they breached the inner sanctum of the stronghold, Steve and his team finally came face to face with the Red Skull. The Red Skull awaited them in a command center, surrounded by advanced technology and his most loyal henchmen. The room was filled with the hum of machinery and the glow of screens, a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded outside. The Red Skull, ever the master of psychological manipulation, sought to undermine Steve's resolve with a mixture of taunts and threats. He revealed his grand plan, a final scheme to use the Cosmic Cube to reshape reality according to his vision. The Red Skull's ambitions had always been to dominate and control, and he intended to use the Cube's power to achieve that goal on a global scale. The confrontation between Steve and the Red Skull was both physical and ideological. The Red Skull was a formidable opponent, possessing both strength and cunning. He used every advantage at his disposal to challenge Steve, employing both direct attacks and manipulative tactics. The battle was a clash of wills as much as it was a physical struggle. Steve fought with a combination of skill, strategy, and sheer determination. The Red Skull's taunts and psychological warfare were designed to shake Steve's confidence, but Steve remained focused on his mission. He understood that the fate of the world and the legacy of his friend Bucky depended on the outcome of this confrontation. The battle reached a critical moment when the Red Skull attempted to activate the Cosmic Cube, using its power to alter reality and further his plans. Steve's allies, including Natasha and Bucky, played a crucial role in preventing the Red Skull from achieving his goal. Natasha used her skills to disable key systems and counteract the Red Skull's manipulations, while Bucky faced his own struggles in the midst of the chaos. As the Red Skull's plans began to unravel, Steve made a final, decisive move. He confronted the Red Skull directly, engaging him in a climactic battle that tested both of their limits. The fight was intense, with Steve using all of his strength and skill to counter the Red Skull's attacks. The Red Skull, despite his formidable abilities, was ultimately driven by hubris and desperation, which proved to be his downfall. In a dramatic and pivotal moment, Steve managed to overpower the Red Skull and gain control of the Cosmic Cube. The cube's immense power was now in Steve's hands, and he faced a critical choice. The Red Skull's ambitions had been thwarted, but the cube's power was still a dangerous force. Steve's decision was to neutralize the cube's power and ensure that it could no longer be used for destructive purposes. He understood the risks of wielding such power and chose to secure it in a way that would prevent any further misuse. The cube's energy was contained, and its potential for reality-altering changes was halted. With the Red Skull defeated and the Cosmic Cube secured, Steve and his allies began to process the aftermath of the confrontation. The stronghold was dismantled, and the remaining Red Skull operatives were taken into custody. The world was safe from the immediate threat of the Red Skull's plans, but the impact of the conflict would be felt for years to come. In the end, Steve's victory was not just a triumph over a formidable enemy, but a testament to the strength of his resolve and the enduring power of his ideals. The battle for Bucky's soul had been a personal and emotional journey, but the final confrontation with the Red Skull had solidified Steve's role as a protector of justice and a defender of the world's future. As Steve and his allies moved forward, they carried with them the lessons learned from this intense and transformative conflict. The death of Captain America. In the heart of a turbulent world, Steve Rogers, known as Captain America, stands as a symbol of unyielding justice and resilience. His legacy is one of bravery, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to his ideals. But as the political and social landscape of America becomes increasingly fractured, the heroic shield-bearer finds himself caught in a storm of conflict and treachery. The story unfolds with Steve Rogers grappling with the weight of his responsibilities. The nation is on edge, reeling from the consequences of recent events, including the fallout from the Superhero Registration Act and the divisive battles that have marked his tenure as Captain America. Rogers, ever the beacon of hope, continues to fight for justice, but the shadows of conspiracy and danger loom larger than ever. One fateful day, as Captain America steps out of a courthouse where he has just attended a trial, the atmosphere is thick with tension. The trial has been a high-profile case, one that pits Steve Rogers against forces that seek to undermine the very essence of his commitment to justice. The outcome of the trial is critical, and Rogers' presence has been a focal point for both supporters and detractors. As Captain America walks to his car, a chilling silence envelopes the streets. Suddenly, the tranquility is shattered by the sound of gunfire. The scene becomes a chaotic blur as bullets pierce the air, and in a moment of harrowing clarity, Steve Rogers is struck down. The mighty shield-bearer, who has faced countless adversaries and emerged victorious, falls to the ground, the symbol of hope and heroism now lying lifeless. The assassination is carried out with cold precision. The killer, concealed by the anonymity of the chaos, escapes into the shadows, leaving behind a scene of devastation. Steve Rogers, once the paragon of strength and virtue, is now a fallen hero, and the world is left to grapple with the enormity of this loss. The immediate aftermath is marked by shock and grief. The news of Captain America's death spreads like wildfire, sending ripples of sorrow and disbelief throughout the nation. In the wake of this tragedy, his allies and friends, men and women who have fought alongside him and revered him as a symbol of all that is good, are left to confront their profound sense of loss. The Avengers, who have been integral to Roger's journey, are devastated. Iron Man, Thor, and other members of the superhero community struggle to process the enormity of the tragedy, each grappling with their own sense of loss and the implications for their future. As the funeral preparations begin, the nation pauses to honor the fallen hero. The ceremony is a solemn occasion, attended by leaders, dignitaries, and countless individuals whose lives have been touched by Captain America's courage. The streets are lined with mourners, and the air is filled with the weight of sorrow. The flags are lowered to half-staff, and a sense of mourning envelopes the country. In the midst of the mourning, questions arise about the identity and motive of Steve Rogers' assassin. The investigation begins in earnest, with law enforcement agencies, including SHIELD, working tirelessly to uncover the truth. The trail leads to a complex web of intrigue, pointing to a conspiracy that goes far beyond a mere act of violence. As the investigation unfolds, it becomes clear that the assassination of Captain America was not an isolated act of violence, but a calculated move in a larger, more sinister plan. The implications of his death are profound, and the search for justice becomes a central focus for those who seek to honor his legacy and protect the values he championed. In the wake of Steve Rogers' tragic death, the world is plunged into a state of grief and uncertainty. The man who embodied the ideals of heroism and justice is gone, and his absence leaves a profound void in the fabric of the Marvel Universe. The story that follows delves into the impact of his death on the people and institutions he held dear. The news of Captain America's death spreads like wildfire, reaching every corner of the globe. The nation is in shock, and the reaction from the public is one of profound sadness. Captain America was more than just a superhero. He was a symbol of hope and courage, a beacon of light in the darkest of times. His death is felt deeply by the countless individuals who were inspired by his unwavering commitment to justice. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Steve Rogers' close allies and friends are left to grapple with their own sense of loss and confusion. The Avengers, the team of heroes who fought alongside Rogers and shared in his mission, are particularly devastated. Iron Man, who had a complicated relationship with Rogers, struggles with feelings of guilt and regret. The burden of leadership falls heavily on Tony Stark, as he must navigate the challenges of leading the Avengers and maintaining the fragile unity of the superhero community. Thor, the god of thunder, mourns the loss of a comrade and friend. His grief is compounded by a sense of helplessness, as he reflects on the role he played in the battles and triumphs they shared. The impact of Rogers' death reverberates through Asgard, where Thor's people also honor the fallen hero. The world of S.H.I.E.L.D. is similarly shaken by the loss of Captain America. Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., is deeply affected by Rogers' death. He had seen Captain America as a reliable ally and a symbol of hope in times of crisis. The intelligence agency mobilizes its resources to investigate the circumstances surrounding the assassination, driven by a sense of duty to uncover the truth and bring those responsible to justice. As the investigation progresses, it becomes clear that Rogers' death was part of a larger and more sinister conspiracy. The nature of the conspiracy points to a coordinated effort by powerful and malevolent forces seeking to exploit the chaos created by Rogers' absence. The investigation reveals a tangled web of intrigue, with hints of involvement from enemies both old and new. Meanwhile, the American government grapples with the implications of Rogers' death. The loss of such a prominent figure raises questions about the future of superhero oversight and the role of the Superhuman Registration Act. The nation is divided, with some calling for increased regulation of superheroes and others advocating for a return to the principles that Captain America championed. In the midst of this turmoil, the question of who will take up the mantle of Captain America becomes a pressing concern. Steve Rogers' legacy is a heavy burden to bear, and the decision of who will assume his role is fraught with complexity. The options are debated by those who knew Rogers best, with the realization that filling his shoes will not be easy. Bucky Barnes, Steve Rogers' old friend and ally, emerges as a key figure in the discussion. Bucky, who had been long believed to be dead, has been struggling with his own dark past and the shadow of his former identity as the Winter Soldier. Despite his own internal conflicts, Bucky feels a deep sense of responsibility to honor his friend's legacy and uphold the ideals that Captain America represented. The transition from Steve Rogers to Bucky Barnes is not without its challenges. Bucky must come to terms with the weight of the mantle and the expectations that come with it. He faces skepticism from those who doubt his ability to live up to Rogers' legacy, as well as internal struggles with his own sense of identity and worthiness. As Bucky begins to step into the role of Captain America, he faces significant obstacles and resistance. The public reaction to his assumption of the mantle is mixed, with some seeing him as a worthy successor and others questioning whether he can truly fill the void left by Steve Rogers. The pressure of living up to Rogers' legacy and navigating the complexities of the superhero world weighs heavily on Bucky. In the midst of this transition, the impact of Steve Rogers' death continues to resonate throughout the Marvel Universe. His legacy is felt in the actions of those who were inspired by him, and the values he stood for become a guiding light for the heroes who continue to fight for justice. The story of Captain America's death is not just a tale of loss, but a testament to the enduring power of his ideals and the far-reaching influence of his legacy. As the world adjusts to the new reality without Steve Rogers, the memory of the fallen hero serves as a constant reminder of the enduring struggle for justice and the resilience of the human spirit. The impact of Captain America's death is felt across the Marvel Universe, shaping the course of events and inspiring new generations of heroes to carry forward his legacy. In the shadow of Captain America's death, the pursuit of justice begins with urgency and determination. The world is in turmoil, and the task of finding those responsible for the assassination of Steve Rogers falls to a dedicated team of investigators. The initial shock of the event quickly gives way to a relentless search for answers, driven by a deep sense of responsibility to honor the fallen hero and protect the values he stood for. The scene of the assassination is meticulously examined. The area around the courthouse where Captain America was shot is cordoned off, and forensic teams work tirelessly to gather evidence. The streets are littered with spent shell casings and the remnants of the chaos that ensued. Investigators comb through the debris, looking for any clues that might point to the identity of the shooter and their motives. S.H.I.E.L.D., led by director Nick Fury, takes a central role in the investigation. Fury, deeply affected by the loss of Rogers, brings in the best of his agents to assist in the search for the assassin. The agency's vast resources and intelligence network are mobilized to track down leads and uncover the truth behind the assassination. Fury himself is personally involved, driven by a sense of duty to his fallen ally and a determination to bring the perpetrators to justice. As the investigation progresses, it becomes clear that the assassination was not a random act of violence, but a carefully orchestrated event. The clues uncovered point to a complex conspiracy involving multiple parties. S.H.I.E.L.D. agents work to decipher the connections between the various pieces of evidence, uncovering a web of intrigue that suggests a coordinated effort by powerful and shadowy figures. One of the key pieces of evidence is a mysterious letter found at the scene, which hints at a larger plan and suggests that Captain America's death was just one part of a more extensive scheme. The letter is cryptic and difficult to decipher, but its ominous message indicates that the assassin was working for a greater cause, one that sought to exploit the chaos created by Rogers' death. The investigation also leads to a series of suspects, including individuals with known grudges against Captain America. Among these suspects is the enigmatic villain known as the Red Skull, a longtime adversary of Rogers who has a history of orchestrating elaborate schemes and seeking revenge against the hero. The Red Skull's involvement is suspected but remains unconfirmed, and the search for concrete evidence continues. The hunt for the assassin takes on a global dimension as S.H.I.E.L.D. agents follow leads that lead them to various locations around the world. The investigation reveals a network of operatives and informants who have been working behind the scenes to destabilize the world order. These operatives are linked to various criminal organizations and political factions that stand to gain from the turmoil created by Rogers' death. In parallel with the official investigation, the Avengers and other heroes also begin their own search for justice. Tony Stark, grappling with his feelings of guilt and responsibility, takes on a more active role in the investigation. He uses his technological expertise and resources to assist S.H.I.E.L.D. in tracking down leads and uncovering the truth behind the assassination. Stark's efforts are driven by a personal sense of duty to his fallen friend and a desire to prevent further chaos. As the investigation progresses, it becomes evident that the conspiracy behind Captain America's death is far-reaching and involves a range of players with their own agendas. The search for justice becomes a race against time as the stakes are raised, with the potential for further attacks and destabilization looming large. The story of the search for justice is one of intense dedication and perseverance. The pursuit of the truth becomes a central focus for those who seek to honor Steve Rogers' legacy and protect the ideals he stood for. The investigation uncovers hidden agendas and unravels a complex web of deceit, with each new revelation bringing the team closer to understanding the true nature of the conspiracy. Throughout the investigation, the memory of Captain America serves as a powerful motivator for those involved. The sense of loss and the desire to ensure that his death was not in vain drive the heroes and investigators to push forward, despite the challenges and setbacks they face. As the search for justice continues, the impact of Steve Rogers' death reverberates through the Marvel Universe, shaping the course of events and inspiring new efforts to uphold the values he championed. The quest for answers and the pursuit of those responsible become a testament to the enduring legacy of Captain America and the unwavering commitment of those who seek to honor his memory. In the wake of Steve Rogers' death, the mantle of Captain America remains unclaimed, leaving the nation and the superhero community in a state of uncertainty. The world looks for someone who can step into the role and carry forward the legacy of the fallen hero. The choice of who will become the new Captain America becomes a matter of profound importance, both for the heroes who knew Rogers and for the public who revered him. Bucky Barnes, once known as the Winter Soldier and Steve Rogers' closest ally, finds himself thrust into the spotlight as a potential successor. Bucky's history is fraught with complexity. He was thought to be dead for many years, but was later revealed to be alive, brainwashed, and manipulated into becoming a Soviet assassin. Despite his dark past, Bucky has sought redemption and has been an instrumental figure in recent events. His close bond with Rogers and his own struggles with identity make him a compelling candidate for the role. As the discussion around the new Captain America intensifies, Bucky grapples with his own reservations and sense of unworthiness. He has long struggled with the burden of his past actions as the Winter Soldier and fears that he may not be able to live up to the ideals and expectations associated with the Captain America mantle. Yet, driven by a deep sense of duty and honor towards his fallen friend, Bucky is compelled to consider the role seriously. The decision to appoint Bucky as Captain America is not without controversy. Some view him as a natural successor, given his close relationship with Steve Rogers and his own heroic deeds. Others, however, are skeptical. They question whether someone with Bucky's dark past can truly embody the virtues that Captain America represents. The debate is fierce, reflecting the broader uncertainty and the weight of responsibility that comes with the role. Despite the skepticism, Bucky receives the backing of several key figures, including the Avengers and Nick Fury. They see in him the potential to carry forward Steve Rogers' legacy and believe that he can rise to the occasion. Bucky's acceptance of the mantle is marked by a period of intense training and preparation, as he seeks to align himself with the ideals of Captain America and learn to wield the shield with the same skill and determination as Rogers did. As Bucky begins his new role, he faces a series of challenges. The public reaction to his assumption of the mantle is mixed. Some view him as a worthy successor, while others remain doubtful, viewing him through the lens of his past actions as the Winter Soldier. Bucky must navigate the complex landscape of public opinion while also proving himself to his fellow heroes and to himself. The transition is complicated by a series of high-stakes situations that test Bucky's resolve and abilities. His first missions as Captain America involve confronting various threats that arise in the wake of Steve Rogers' death. These missions are not only a test of his physical capabilities, but also of his ability to uphold the principles that Rogers stood for. One of Bucky's initial challenges involves a confrontation with remnants of the criminal organizations and rogue elements that had been emboldened by Rogers' absence. These adversaries seek to exploit the vacuum left by the fallen hero and pose a significant threat to global stability. Bucky must navigate these challenges while dealing with the internal and external pressures of his new role. Throughout his journey as the new Captain America, Bucky also grapples with the weight of his predecessor's legacy. The shield, once wielded by Steve Rogers, is a symbol of heroism and hope. For Bucky, carrying it is both an honor and a heavy burden. He is determined to honor Rogers' memory and live up to the ideals of the role, but he must also confront his own doubts and fears. As Bucky grows into the role of Captain America, he begins to earn the respect and trust of those around him. His actions and decisions reflect his commitment to the values of justice, freedom, and bravery that Steve Rogers embodied. The journey is one of redemption and self-discovery, as Bucky strives to prove himself worthy of the mantle and to uphold the legacy of his fallen friend. In the wake of Captain America's death, the shadow of the Red Skull looms ominously over the Marvel Universe. The Red Skull, a longtime adversary of Steve Rogers and one of his most dangerous enemies, is suspected of being involved in the conspiracy that led to the assassination of the fallen hero. As the investigation progresses, it becomes clear that the Red Skull's machinations are at the heart of the crisis, and the search for justice takes a dramatic turn towards a confrontation with this formidable foe. The Red Skull, whose real name is Johann Schmidt, is a figure of terror and malevolence. His hatred for Captain America is deeply rooted in their long history of conflict. Schmidt, once a high-ranking Nazi officer and the leader of the Red Skull's organization, has always sought to undermine the values and principles that Captain America stands for. His long-standing vendetta against Rogers makes him a prime suspect in the assassination plot. The story picks up with Bucky Barnes, the newly appointed Captain America, preparing to confront the Red Skull. Bucky's role as the new Captain America has not been without challenges, and the looming threat of the Red Skull adds a new layer of urgency to his mission. Bucky, driven by a sense of duty and a desire to honor Steve Rogers' legacy, is determined to bring the Red Skull to justice and prevent further chaos. The investigation into the Red Skull's activities leads Bucky and his allies to a series of secret bases and hidden locations associated with the villain. These locations are scattered across the globe, reflecting the Red Skull's extensive network of operatives and resources. Bucky, along with key members of the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D., embarks on a perilous journey to track down the Red Skull and uncover his plans. As Bucky and his team delve deeper into the Red Skull's operations, they uncover evidence of a grand scheme designed to exploit the chaos created by Captain America's death. The Red Skull's plan involves a coordinated effort to destabilize global governments and incite widespread conflict. His ultimate goal is to seize power and impose his own twisted vision of order on the world. The confrontation with the Red Skull unfolds with a series of dramatic and intense battles. Bucky, armed with Steve Rogers' shield and his own determination, faces off against the Red Skull's minions and henchmen. These encounters are fraught with danger and highlight Bucky's growth into his role as Captain America. His combat skills, strategic acumen, and resilience are put to the test as he confronts the Red Skull's forces. The Red Skull, a master of manipulation and subterfuge, remains elusive and cunning. He uses his knowledge of the global political landscape and his network of operatives to stay one step ahead of Bucky and his team. The villain's tactics involve psychological warfare and psychological manipulation, aiming to sow discord and undermine the efforts of the heroes. In a climactic confrontation, Bucky and the Red Skull finally come face to face. The battle between them is a clash of ideologies and personal vendettas. The Red Skull, with his formidable combat skills and ruthless determination, represents the antithesis of everything Captain America stood for. Bucky, driven by his desire to honor Steve Rogers' memory and protect the values he cherished, engages in a fierce and intense battle with the villain. The confrontation reaches its zenith with a dramatic showdown. The Red Skull reveals his ultimate plan, a device capable of unleashing widespread chaos and destruction. Bucky, racing against time, must thwart the Red Skull's scheme and prevent the device from being activated. The battle is not only a physical contest but also a moral struggle, as Bucky grapples with the weight of his responsibility and the legacy of Captain America. In the final moments of the confrontation, Bucky manages to overcome the Red Skull's schemes and stop his plans. The Red Skull is ultimately defeated, but the victory comes at a cost. The battle leaves Bucky and his allies physically and emotionally drained, and the fallout from the confrontation reverberates throughout the Marvel Universe. With the Red Skull's defeat, Bucky's role as the new Captain America is solidified. He has faced one of his predecessor's most dangerous foes and emerged victorious. The confrontation with the Red Skull serves as a defining moment in Bucky's journey, cementing his place as a worthy successor to Steve Rogers and reaffirming his commitment to upholding the ideals of Captain America. The aftermath of the confrontation with the Red Skull brings a sense of closure to the immediate crisis, but the impact of the battle continues to be felt. The world is left to reflect on the legacy of Steve Rogers and the enduring struggle for justice and heroism. Bucky, now more firmly established in his role, must continue to navigate the challenges and responsibilities of being Captain America, carrying forward the torch of his fallen friend and ensuring that the values they both championed endure. In the wake of the intense battles and pivotal confrontations that have marked the recent events, the legacy of Steve Rogers, the original Captain America, continues to shape the world and the heroes who follow in his footsteps. As the dust settles from the confrontation with the Red Skull, the focus shifts to how the legacy of Steve Rogers is carried forward, not just through the actions of his successor Bucky Barnes, but through the broader impact of his ideals on the Marvel Universe. Bucky Barnes, now firmly established as the new Captain America, begins to settle into his role. He faces the ongoing challenge of living up to Steve Rogers' legacy while grappling with his own sense of identity and responsibility. The mantle of Captain America is more than just a symbol. It represents a set of ideals and values that Rogers embodied throughout his life. For Bucky, stepping into this role is both an honor and a heavy burden. As Bucky navigates his new responsibilities, he works to reestablish the public's trust and confidence in the symbol of Captain America. His efforts are not solely focused on physical battles, but also on addressing the broader issues of justice, freedom, and leadership that Rogers championed. Bucky engages with various communities and organizations, striving to show that he is committed to the same principles that Steve Rogers stood for. The Avengers and other superhero teams continue to play a crucial role in supporting Bucky and the ongoing efforts to uphold the values of Captain America. The team acknowledges the challenges that come with Bucky's transition into the role, and they work together to address threats and crises that arise. The Avengers' support helps Bucky in proving himself as a worthy successor and in building a new era of heroism. The impact of Steve Rogers' legacy is also felt through the reactions of those who were closest to him. His friends, allies, and fellow heroes reflect on his life and the example he set. Their memories of Rogers and their own experiences with him serve as a source of inspiration and guidance as they continue their own journeys in the world of superheroes. One significant aspect of continuing Rogers' legacy involves addressing the broader implications of his death. The fallout from his assassination has led to a re-examination of the Superhuman Registration Act and the role of superheroes in society. The political and social landscape is in flux, with debates about the regulation of superpowered individuals and the role of heroes in maintaining order and justice. Bucky Barnes, as Captain America, becomes a voice in these debates, advocating for the principles of justice and freedom that Steve Rogers upheld. His stance on these issues influences public opinion and contributes to shaping the future direction of superhero governance and oversight. As Bucky continues to uphold the mantle of Captain America, he encounters various challenges that test his resolve and commitment. These challenges include facing new villains and threats that seek to exploit the changing landscape of the superhero world. Bucky must navigate these obstacles while staying true to the ideals of Captain America and maintaining the trust and support of his allies and the public. The legacy of Steve Rogers also inspires new heroes and individuals who are motivated by his example. These new heroes look up to Rogers and seek to emulate his courage and dedication. The presence of these new heroes contributes to the ongoing legacy of Captain America and reflects the enduring impact of Rogers' ideals on future generations. In the broader Marvel Universe, the legacy of Steve Rogers continues to influence the actions and decisions of various characters. His impact is felt in the way that heroes approach their roles and responsibilities, and his example serves as a guiding force in the ongoing struggle for justice and heroism. Bucky Barnes' journey as the new Captain America is not just about continuing a legacy, but also about forging his own path and defining his role within the larger context of the superhero world. His actions and decisions as Captain America reflect his own growth and development, and they contribute to the ongoing story of heroism and legacy that Steve Rogers began. The story of the legacy that continues is one of honor, dedication, and the enduring power of ideals. It is a testament to the lasting impact of Steve Rogers and the ongoing efforts of those who strive to uphold the values he championed. As Bucky Barnes and other heroes carry forward the torch of Captain America, they do so with the knowledge that they are part of a larger narrative of heroism and legacy that transcends individual achievements and touches the hearts and minds of people around the world. Captain America: The Bloodstone Hunt. In the bustling heart of New York City, Captain America, known to his allies as Steve Rogers, found himself in an unusual predicament. The day had begun like any other, with Steve Rogers working to balance his life as a hero and his civilian identity. However, the atmosphere was charged with an undercurrent of urgency. A mysterious artifact had recently surfaced, sending ripples through the world of ancient relics and forgotten powers. This artifact was none other than the Bloodstone, a legendary gem rumored to possess immense mystical properties. The tale of the Bloodstone was steeped in myth and intrigue. It was said to have been created by the ancient god of chaos, a gift or curse depending on one's perspective. Over the centuries, the Bloodstone had passed through various hands, from powerful sorcerers to ruthless conquerors. Each wielder had their own story, but the common thread was the Bloodstone's ability to grant its bearer extraordinary strength and resilience. The plot thickened when the Bloodstone was stolen from a secure museum in London. The theft was meticulously planned, with no clues left behind, suggesting an insider's knowledge of the museum's security measures. The artifact's disappearance was so precise that it set off alarms across various intelligence agencies and historical societies. It didn't take long for these alarms to reach Captain America's ears. Within the confines of his New York apartment, Steve Rogers received a cryptic message from an old friend, Dr. Stephen Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme. The message was brief but urgent. The Bloodstone had been stolen, and its power was too great to fall into the wrong hands. Dr. Strange's concern was palpable, as he knew the Bloodstone's power could tip the scales in favor of those who wished to disrupt the balance between good and evil. Steve Rogers, always prepared for such emergencies, quickly donned his iconic Captain America uniform. The Star-Spangled Shield, a symbol of justice and freedom, was his constant companion. As he made his way to the Sanctum Sanctorum, the residence and magical haven of Dr. Strange, the weight of the situation settled on him. Dr. Strange greeted Captain America with a grim expression. The Sanctum Sanctorum, usually a place of calm and mysticism, was abuzz with arcane energy. Strange wasted no time in explaining the gravity of the situation. The Bloodstone's theft was more than a simple heist. It was a matter of global security. The artifact was linked to ancient magical forces that could potentially be harnessed for catastrophic purposes. Strange revealed that the Bloodstone had been in the possession of a secretive and ancient organization known as the Darkhold Cult. This cult, shrouded in secrecy, was rumored to have been seeking the Bloodstone for centuries, hoping to unlock its full potential. Their motives were unknown, but their track record suggested they were anything but benevolent. As Captain America listened intently, Strange provided him with a crucial piece of information: a series of magical wards and clues that might lead to the Bloodstone's current location. These wards were designed to obscure the artifact's trail, making it nearly impossible to track. But with Strange's assistance, Captain America would have a fighting chance. With this newfound knowledge, Captain America embarked on a quest that would take him far beyond the confines of New York. The search for the Bloodstone was not just a mission but a race against time. The fate of countless lives could hinge on the outcome of this endeavor.
As he set out on his journey, the shadows of past battles and enemies seemed to whisper through the streets. The Bloodstone's dark allure was a reminder of the constant struggle between light and darkness. Captain America's resolve was unshaken. He knew that to prevent the Bloodstone from falling into the wrong hands, he would have to confront ancient evils and uncover secrets buried deep within the annals of history. Thus began the adventure of retrieving the Bloodstone, a journey fraught with danger and mystery, where every step would bring him closer to understanding the artifact's true power and the nefarious forces that sought to control it. Captain America's quest to retrieve the Bloodstone began with a sense of urgency that left no room for hesitation. Armed with the cryptic wards provided by Dr. Strange, Steve Rogers prepared himself for the journey ahead. His first destination was a remote location that held significance in the search for the Bloodstone. But this was only the beginning of a complex and dangerous adventure. The trail led Captain America to a secluded library in the Highlands of Scotland, a place known for its vast collection of rare and ancient manuscripts. The library's custodian, an elderly scholar named Eamon McGregor, had been a friend of Dr. Strange and was familiar with the lore surrounding the Bloodstone. When Captain America arrived, McGregor was in the midst of organizing dusty tomes and ancient scrolls, his weathered hands moving with practiced ease. Upon seeing Captain America, McGregor's initial surprise quickly turned into recognition. He ushered Steve into a private study, away from prying eyes. The scholar had been expecting Captain America's visit, as Strange had informed him of the impending search for the Bloodstone. McGregor's library held a wealth of information about the artifact's history and possible locations. As they delved into the research, McGregor explained that the Bloodstone's last known location was a ruined castle hidden deep within the Scottish Highlands. This castle, abandoned for centuries, was rumored to be the site of a significant magical ritual connected to the Bloodstone. McGregor revealed that the ruins were protected by ancient enchantments and traps, designed to keep intruders at bay. Armed with this information, Captain America set off towards the Highlands. His journey through the rugged terrain was arduous, the path marked by dense fog and treacherous cliffs. As he approached the ruins of the castle, the atmosphere grew increasingly foreboding. The castle was an imposing structure, its once grand towers now crumbling and overtaken by nature. Navigating the castle's interior proved challenging. The ancient enchantments McGregor had mentioned were very much real. Captain America encountered a series of magical traps designed to deter anyone seeking the Bloodstone. The traps ranged from illusory walls and shifting floors to magical wards that emanated bursts of energy. Each obstacle required both physical agility and mental acuity to overcome. In the heart of the castle, Captain America discovered a hidden chamber protected by a formidable barrier of mystical energy. This chamber was the focal point of the castle's enchantments and was where the ritual involving the Bloodstone had once taken place. The chamber's walls were adorned with arcane symbols and inscriptions that told the story of the Bloodstone's power and its role in the ritual. As Captain America examined the chamber, he was suddenly confronted by a figure shrouded in shadows. This mysterious individual was none other than a member of the Darkhold cult, the very organization that had stolen the Bloodstone. The cultist, clad in dark robes and speaking in a cryptic manner, revealed that they had been expecting Captain America. It became clear that the cult was aware of his pursuit and had taken measures to ensure their plans remained undisturbed. A fierce battle ensued within the chamber. The cultist wielded dark magic and summoned spectral entities to aid in the fight. Despite the overwhelming odds, Captain America's combat skills and strategic thinking allowed him to hold his ground. The fight was intense, with the magical energies clashing against the resilience and agility of the super soldier. The battle reached its climax as Captain America, with a combination of his shield's defensive prowess and precise strikes, managed to subdue the cultist. However, the victory was bittersweet. The cultist, before losing consciousness, revealed that the Bloodstone had been moved to another location, one even more concealed and protected than the castle ruins. Determined to continue the pursuit, Captain America gathered any clues that might help him locate the new hiding place of the Bloodstone. The journey had only just begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. With the knowledge gained from the battle and the cryptic messages left by the cultist, Captain America prepared for the next leg of his quest, knowing that the challenges ahead would test his resolve and skills in ways he had yet to imagine. As he left the castle ruins, the sense of urgency intensified. The Bloodstone's power was a prize that could tip the balance of power, and Captain America's mission was far from over. The hunt for the artifact would lead him through more trials, uncovering deeper layers of conspiracy and danger as he closed in on the elusive prize. Captain America's pursuit of the Bloodstone had led him to the edge of the known world of mystical artifacts. As he continued his search, the trail brought him to an ancient and enigmatic library in Paris. This library, known for housing rare and arcane knowledge, was rumored to hold secrets about artifacts like the Bloodstone. The journey was not just a quest for the artifact, but also a voyage into the shadows of history. Within the dimly lit library, the air was thick with the scent of old parchment and wax. Captain America's presence drew the attention of the librarian, a wise and elderly figure named Armand Leclerc. Armand, who had a reputation for knowing every corner of the library's vast collection, was a scholar of ancient lore. When Captain America introduced himself, Armand's interest was piqued. He knew of the Bloodstone and its legendary status and was more than willing to assist. Armand led Captain America to a secluded section of the library where rare manuscripts and historical records were kept. The walls were lined with shelves containing ancient tomes, their bindings worn with age. Armand pulled out a large, dusty book bound in cracked leather. This book was a compendium of magical artifacts, including detailed accounts of the Bloodstone. As they pored over the ancient texts, Captain America learned about the Bloodstone's origins. The artifact was said to have been forged in the dawn of time, created by an enigmatic deity whose motives remained shrouded in mystery. The Bloodstone was imbued with immense power, capable of bestowing great strength and vitality, but it also had a dark history of corruption and conflict. The records described how the Bloodstone had been sought by various historical figures, each with their own agenda. Among them was a legendary sorcerer from the Middle Ages who had used the Bloodstone to amass great power, only to be betrayed and overthrown by his own disciples. Another entry detailed how the Bloodstone had been hidden away in a secret location, known only to a select few, to prevent its misuse. Captain America's attention was drawn to a particular entry that mentioned a hidden temple deep within the African jungle. This temple was reputed to be a site of great magical significance and was believed to house an important clue about the Bloodstone's whereabouts. According to the records, the temple was surrounded by dangerous traps and guarded by mystical wards, designed to protect its secrets from intruders. Armed with this new information, Captain America prepared to journey to the African jungle. However, before leaving Paris, he received a message from Dr. Strange. The message was cryptic and filled with arcane symbols, hinting at the urgency of the situation. Strange warned that the Darkhold cult had increased their efforts to locate and harness the Bloodstone's power. Their reach was extensive, and their methods were becoming more aggressive. As Captain America made his way to the African jungle, he encountered a series of challenges. The dense foliage and treacherous terrain made navigation difficult, and he had to rely on his skills and instincts to forge ahead. The journey was physically demanding, but his determination to find the Bloodstone and thwart the cult's plans kept him focused. Upon arriving at the temple, Captain America found it to be a grand yet foreboding structure, overgrown with vines and partially obscured by the jungle. The entrance was adorned with ancient symbols and carvings that hinted at the temple's magical nature. The air was thick with an oppressive energy that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Navigating the temple proved to be an ordeal. Captain America encountered a series of elaborate traps designed to test both his physical and mental fortitude. These traps included shifting walls, hidden spikes, and magical illusions meant to mislead and confound intruders. Each step required careful consideration and quick reflexes to avoid peril. In the heart of the temple, Captain America discovered an ancient altar surrounded by inscriptions that detailed the Bloodstone's mystical properties. The altar was marked with a complex series of runes, which, when deciphered, provided a clue to the Bloodstone's next possible location. The inscriptions also hinted at a ritual that could be performed to reveal hidden pathways and protectors of the artifact. Before Captain America could fully explore the altar's secrets, he was ambushed by a group of cultists. These cultists, having followed Captain America to the temple, sought to capture him and seize any information he had gathered. A fierce battle erupted within the temple's confines. The cultists, wielding dark magic and summoning mystical creatures, posed a significant threat. Despite the overwhelming odds, Captain America's skill and determination shone through. Using his shield and combat expertise, he managed to fend off the cultists and prevent them from accessing the altar. In the aftermath of the battle, he collected the clues and artifacts left behind by the cultists, which further revealed the Bloodstone's enigmatic journey. With the new information in hand, Captain America continued his quest, knowing that the path to retrieving the Bloodstone was fraught with danger and deception. Each clue uncovered led him closer to understanding the artifact's true nature and the nefarious forces that sought to control it. The shadows of the past loomed large, and Captain America's resolve was tested as he delved deeper into the mysteries surrounding the Bloodstone. Captain America's journey to secure the Bloodstone took him deeper into the intricate web of intrigue and danger that surrounded the artifact. His discovery of the hidden temple had provided crucial clues, but it also attracted the attention of formidable adversaries who were equally determined to possess the Bloodstone for their own purposes.
As Captain America continued his quest, it became clear that he was not alone in the pursuit of the Bloodstone. In the shadows, a series of dangerous and powerful figures began to emerge, each with their own motivations and resources. Their interest in the Bloodstone was not merely academic. They saw it as a means to achieve their own goals, whether they were personal, political, or supernatural. Among these enemies was the enigmatic leader of the Darkhold cult, a figure known only as the Grandmaster. The Grandmaster was a master of ancient and forbidden magic, possessing a vast knowledge of mystical artifacts and dark rituals. His goal was to harness the Bloodstone's power to consolidate his control over the cult and expand his influence across the globe. The Grandmaster's ambition was matched only by his cunning, as he orchestrated a series of schemes to acquire the Bloodstone and eliminate anyone who stood in his way. The Grandmaster was not alone in his quest. His organization had attracted a cadre of ruthless allies, each with their own distinct abilities and agendas. One such ally was the sorceress Morgana Le Fay, a dark enchantress with a long history of conflict with the forces of good. Morgana sought the Bloodstone to augment her own magical powers and exact revenge on those who had thwarted her plans in the past. Her presence added a layer of complexity to the already perilous situation, as her formidable sorcery posed a significant threat to Captain America. In addition to the Darkhold cult and Morgana, a secretive group of mercenaries known as the Shadow Syndicate also entered the fray. The Shadow Syndicate was a clandestine organization specializing in the acquisition of rare and valuable artifacts through any means necessary. Their leader, a ruthless operative named Victor, had a reputation for being both calculating and dangerous. The Shadow Syndicate's involvement introduced a new level of threat, as their methods were unrestrained and their loyalty was easily bought. As Captain America ventured through Europe in search of more clues, he encountered these adversaries in various forms. The Shadow Syndicate, using their network of spies and informants, had been tracking his movements and laying traps to capture him. Their attempts were both sophisticated and insidious, involving ambushes and sabotage designed to thwart Captain America's progress. Meanwhile, Morgana Le Fay employed her dark magic to create obstacles and illusions, hoping to mislead Captain America and lead him into dangerous situations. Her magical prowess allowed her to manipulate environments and conjure formidable creatures to challenge him. Despite her efforts, Captain America's resourcefulness and determination allowed him to navigate through these magical trials. The Grandmaster, operating from the shadows, orchestrated a series of coordinated attacks on Captain America. Utilizing his knowledge of the occult, he summoned dark forces and created powerful artifacts to hinder Captain America's quest. The Grandmaster's schemes were both intricate and far-reaching, involving hidden rituals and arcane traps designed to slow down or eliminate anyone who sought the Bloodstone. Throughout this period, Captain America found himself in a constant battle of wits and strength against these adversaries. He had to remain vigilant and strategic, as the threats came from multiple directions. The enemies gathered were not just individuals, but an interconnected network of forces that sought to gain control over the Bloodstone. In the midst of these challenges, Captain America's resolve was tested. He had to rely on his allies, including Doctor Strange, who continued to provide guidance and support from afar. Together, they worked to uncover more information about the Bloodstone's whereabouts and the Grandmaster's plans. The stakes grew higher as the enemy's efforts to secure the Bloodstone intensified. Each encounter revealed more about the Darkhold cult's motivations and the lengths to which they would go to achieve their goals. The growing threat of Morgana Le Fay's dark magic and the ruthless efficiency of the Shadow Syndicate added to the complexity of the situation. With every step, Captain America drew closer to understanding the full extent of the dangers posed by his adversaries. The web of intrigue surrounding the Bloodstone was becoming increasingly tangled, and he knew that the final confrontation would require not only physical strength, but also mental acuity and unwavering determination. As the enemies gathered and their plans unfolded, Captain America's quest to secure the Bloodstone became a battle not just for the artifact, but for the very balance of power between light and darkness. As Captain America pressed on with his quest to retrieve the Bloodstone, the intensity of the conflict escalated into a complex and high-stakes game of strategy and deception. The enemies arrayed against him, led by the Darkhold cult, Morgana Le Fay, and the Shadow Syndicate, were not only formidable in their own right, but also adept at manipulating the environment and exploiting weaknesses. The confrontation now required more than just physical prowess. It demanded a sharp mind and an ability to outthink adversaries who were equally determined to seize the artifact. Captain America's first major encounter in this battle of wits occurred in the heart of Paris, where a clandestine auction for mystical artifacts was being held. This auction, shrouded in secrecy, attracted a variety of buyers, including those interested in the Bloodstone. Captain America, having received intelligence about the event from his network of informants, infiltrated the auction under the guise of a wealthy collector. His goal was to gather information about the Bloodstone and its current status. The auction was held in an opulent, dimly lit ballroom, where rare artifacts from around the world were on display. The atmosphere was charged with excitement and the promise of extraordinary treasures. As Captain America navigated through the crowd, he observed the interactions of various attendees. The auction's organizer, a suave and enigmatic figure named Lucien, was known for his connections with the Shadow Syndicate. Lucien's reputation for dealing in rare and dangerous artifacts made him a key player in the ongoing battle for the Bloodstone. Captain America's presence did not go unnoticed. His infiltration was met with suspicion by Lucien, who was known for his sharp instincts. The tension in the room heightened as Captain America discreetly gathered information. He overheard conversations and observed potential buyers who had suspiciously deep pockets and connections to the Darkhold cult. Morgana Le Fay, cloaked in magical wards to conceal her identity, was also present, her aura of dark power palpable even in the crowded ballroom. As the auction reached its climax, a bidding war erupted for a particularly rare artifact rumored to be linked to the Bloodstone. The competitive atmosphere revealed the presence of high-profile players with vested interests in the Bloodstone's acquisition. Lucien's manipulation of the auction was apparent, as he used psychological tactics to drive up the bids and create a frenzy among the bidders.
During the auction, Captain America's cover was nearly blown when he encountered a rival operative from the Shadow Syndicate, a skilled thief known for his agility and stealth. The encounter was tense, with both parties recognizing each other as potential threats. A subtle, yet charged confrontation ensued, showcasing their mutual awareness and strategic maneuvering. Captain America's ability to maintain his composure and use his surroundings to his advantage allowed him to deflect suspicion and continue his investigation. The auction concluded with no clear winner of the Bloodstone, as Lucian announced that the item had been sold privately. Captain America's mission to uncover the Bloodstone's whereabouts had provided crucial insights into the tactics and players involved, but the artifact itself remained elusive. The next phase of the Battle of Wits took Captain America to the hidden lairs and secretive gatherings of the Darkhold cult. Through a series of covert operations and strategic planning, he managed to infiltrate one of their clandestine meetings. The meeting was held in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of London, where the cultists gathered to discuss their plans. Inside the warehouse, Captain America observed the cultists' discussions and rituals. The cultists, led by the Grandmaster, were engaged in a complex series of arcane ceremonies aimed at unlocking the Bloodstone's hidden powers. The Grandmaster's strategic genius was evident in his meticulous planning and the way he orchestrated the cult's actions to remain one step ahead of their adversaries. Captain America discovered that the Bloodstone was being transported to a secure location for a final ritual intended to channel its power. The location was revealed to be a remote fortress in the Swiss Alps, heavily fortified and surrounded by mystical wards. The fortress was designed to be impenetrable, with layers of magical and physical defenses. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Captain America devised a plan to infiltrate the fortress. He utilized his skills in reconnaissance and strategy to identify weak points in the fortress's defenses. His approach involved creating diversions, leveraging the natural terrain, and coordinating with allies who could provide support. The meticulous planning and execution of the infiltration were crucial in overcoming the fortress's formidable defenses. As Captain America breached the fortress, he faced a series of challenges that tested his strategic acumen. The fortress was protected by a combination of enchanted guardians, complex traps, and magical barriers. Each obstacle required a careful and calculated response. Captain America's ability to think on his feet and adapt to evolving threats played a key role in overcoming these challenges. In the heart of the fortress, Captain America encountered a final confrontation with the Darkhold cult and their allies. The Grandmaster, Morgana Le Fay, and Victor from the Shadow Syndicate were all present, each seeking to claim the Bloodstone for their own purposes. The confrontation was a battle of wits and wills, as each faction employed their own strategies to outmaneuver the others. Captain America's presence in the fortress was met with a fierce resistance. The battle unfolded as a complex and dynamic clash of tactics, with alliances shifting and strategies evolving in real time. The confrontation required Captain America to use every ounce of his training and experience to stay ahead of his adversaries and protect the Bloodstone from falling into the wrong hands. The Battle of Wits reached its climax as Captain America managed to outsmart the Grandmaster and his allies. By exploiting their overconfidence and using their own tactics against them, he succeeded in securing the Bloodstone and preventing its misuse. The victory was hard-earned, marked by a combination of strategic brilliance, physical prowess, and unwavering determination. With the Bloodstone in his possession, Captain America emerged from the fortress, aware that the struggle was far from over. The artifact's power remained a significant threat, and the forces arrayed against him were not easily deterred. The Battle of Wits had been a critical phase in the quest, but the journey to ensure the Bloodstone's safety and confront its dark legacy was far from complete. Captain America's triumph in securing the Bloodstone was a momentary victory in an ongoing battle that continued to unfold with unforeseen twists and deeper layers of deception. As he sought to understand the full implications of his actions, he found himself entangled in a web of revelations and betrayals that threatened to unravel everything he had fought for. The initial revelation came when Captain America discovered an encrypted message hidden within the Bloodstone's protective casing. The message, revealed through careful analysis and the use of specialized technology, detailed the Bloodstone's true nature and its connection to a powerful and ancient cosmic entity known as the Enigma. This entity, long dormant, was said to be a source of immense power, capable of reshaping reality itself. The message implied that the Bloodstone was not merely an artifact of power, but a key to awakening the Enigma from its slumber. Understanding the gravity of this revelation, Captain America realized that his mission had far-reaching consequences beyond the immediate danger of the Darkhold cult and its allies. The Bloodstone was now a linchpin in a cosmic scheme that could have catastrophic effects if it fell into the wrong hands. His task was no longer just about protecting the artifact, but preventing an ancient cosmic force from being unleashed. As Captain America delved deeper into the mysteries surrounding the Bloodstone, he began to uncover more about the factions that sought it. He learned that the Darkhold cult's obsession with the artifact was driven by a prophecy that promised them dominion over all magic and reality. The Grandmaster's ultimate goal was not just personal power, but to use the Bloodstone to fulfill this prophecy and bring about a new era of darkness. Amidst these revelations, a sense of betrayal began to surface. Captain America had been working closely with allies, including Doctor Strange, to protect the Bloodstone. However, he started to suspect that not all of his allies had been entirely forthcoming. The first sign of this betrayal came when he discovered inconsistencies in the information provided by Doctor Strange. It became clear that there were gaps in the knowledge and guidance that had been shared. The betrayal was further compounded by the actions of certain individuals within Captain America's own network. A trusted ally who had been instrumental in providing intelligence and support was revealed to be a double agent working for the Shadow Syndicate. This individual had been feeding information to the enemy, compromising Captain America's operations and endangering the Bloodstone. The true depth of the betrayal was unveiled during a dramatic confrontation in a secluded safe house, where Captain America confronted the double agent. The exchange was intense, filled with revelations of covert dealings and secret communications. The double agent admitted to having been coerced into working for the Shadow Syndicate, revealing a complex web of threats and manipulation orchestrated by Victor, the Syndicate's leader. Captain America's confrontation with the double agent led to a deeper understanding of the Syndicate's operations and their ultimate goal. Victor's plan was to use the Bloodstone to enhance his own power and establish a global network of influence and control. The Syndicate's machinations were more extensive than previously realized, and their reach extended far beyond simple mercenary activities. With the betrayal now exposed, Captain America had to reassess his strategy and alliances. The knowledge of the Enigma's potential reawakening added a new layer of urgency to his mission. He realized that the Bloodstone's power needed to be contained, and that the cosmic entity it was linked to had to be prevented from awakening. As Captain America continued his pursuit of the Bloodstone, he was faced with new challenges. The Grandmaster, Morgana Le Fay, and Victor intensified their efforts, each seeking to exploit the Bloodstone for their own ends. The cosmic threat posed by the Enigma became a central focus, as Captain America sought to find a way to neutralize the artifact's power and prevent its misuse. The betrayals and revelations forced Captain America to operate with greater caution and vigilance. He had to navigate a landscape filled with deception, where allies could quickly become enemies and every piece of information needed to be scrutinized. The stakes were higher than ever, with the potential for cosmic upheaval looming on the horizon. In the face of these challenges, Captain America's determination remained unshaken. His mission was clear: protect the Bloodstone, thwart the plans of his enemies, and prevent the awakening of the Enigma. The journey was fraught with danger, but his resolve was steadfast as he continued to confront the revelations and betrayals that shaped the course of his quest.